Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the Dino Sage Ranger, who mastered all Dino Gems. Naruto x Kira Ford x Cassidy Cornell Power Rangers. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Dimensional Breach. The air split open with a sound like tearing fabric stretched across the universe. Brilliant light erupted in concentric rings of gold and azure, casting strange shadows across Reefside's forest clearing. Birds scattered skyward as the dimensional rift expanded, its edges pulsing with unstable energy. Naruto Uzumaki tumbled through the breach, his body wreathed in fading golden chakra. The remnants of Six Paths Sage Mode dissipated like morning mist as he crashed against ancient pine trees, splintering three trunks before coming to rest in a crater of his own making. Blood trickled from a gash above his eye, momentarily blinding him as consciousness wavered. "Damn it," he gasped, struggling to his knees. His orange and black uniform hung in tatters, revealing tanned skin crisscrossed with fresh wounds and old scars alike. Where did you send me, you pale-eyed bastard?" The dimensional rift collapsed with a thunderous implosion, sending one final shockwave across the forest. Leaves and broken branches rained down as silence reclaimed the woods, broken only by Naruto's labored breathing. 24 years of life as Konoha's most unpredictable ninja had taught Naruto to quickly assess his surroundings. This forest felt wrong. The chakra signature of every living thing vibrated at a different frequency than in his world. Even the air tasted strange, carrying unfamiliar scents of machinery and substances he couldn't identify. "Kurama," he whispered, reaching inward to the nine-tailed fox. "You feeling this?" A rumbling voice responded in his mind, weakened but present. "This isn't our world, Kit. That Otsutsuki's space-time technique was more powerful than we anticipated. Our chakra is behaving strangely here." Naruto closed his eyes, centering himself. His reserves felt diminished, as though this reality itself was resistant to his energy. A twig snapped nearby, and his eyes flew open as combat instincts engaged. "I'm not looking for trouble," came a measured male voice as a figure emerged from between the trees. The man appeared to be in his late 30s, with short black hair and watchful eyes that immediately registered to Naruto as those of an experienced warrior. He wore civilian clothes, jeans and a black t-shirt, but his stance betrayed years of martial discipline. "That was quite an entrance," the stranger said, maintaining a cautious distance. "I felt the energy spike from miles away. I'm Tommy Oliver." Naruto rose to his feet, wincing as his ribs protested. He maintained a defensive posture while assessing potential escape routes. "Naruto Uzumaki. I'm not from around here. That much is obvious." Tommy's eyes flicked to the crater, then to the strange markings on Naruto's tattered clothing. "The question is whether you're here to cause problems." "Not my style to start fights without reason," Naruto replied, straightening to his full height. The movement sent a fresh wave of pain through his torso. "But I finish them when necessary." The corner of Tommy's mouth twitched in what might have been appreciation. "Fair enough. You look like you could use medical attention. I heal fast." As if to demonstrate, Naruto wiped away the blood from his forehead, revealing the wound was already closing. "More important question. Where exactly am I?" "Reefside, California." Tommy studied Naruto's blank expression. "United States. Earth." "Earth," Naruto repeated, the alien word unfamiliar on his tongue. "This isn't my world." Tommy's posture shifted subtly. Quote, "You wouldn't be the first interdimensional visitor I've encountered. The energy signature from your arrival, it was unlike anything I've seen before, but it had familiar elements." Naruto narrowed his eyes. This man knew too much to be an ordinary civilian. "You're not just some random guy who happened to be hiking in these woods, are you?" A ghost of a smile crossed Tommy's face. "Let's just say I've had experience with the unusual. Look, you're injured and in unfamiliar territory. I have resources that might help you understand how you got here, and possibly how to get back." Naruto weighed his options. His chakra reserves were depleted from the battle with the Otsutsuki and the interdimensional travel. In an unknown world, allies would be valuable. "Be cautious, but he speaks truth," Kurama rumbled within him. "I sense no immediate deception." "All right, Naruto finally said. Lead the way, Tommy Oliver. As they walked through the forest, Naruto observed everything with trained shinobi senses. This world hummed with strange energies, not chakra, but something adjacent to it. The trees were similar to those in Fire Country, yet subtly different. Distant sounds of mechanical transportation devices echoed from beyond the woodland. You mentioned feeling my arrival from miles away. Naruto broke the silence. You have sensory abilities. Tommy considered his response carefully. I've worked with various energy sources that made me sensitive to certain disturbances. Your arrival registered like an earthquake on those senses. And these resources you mentioned. I maintain a lab for studying unusual phenomena. It's equipped with technology that might help identify the nature of the rift that brought you here. They emerged from the forest edge to a paved road where a black vehicle waited. Naruto had seen similar contraptions in the more technologically advanced areas of his world, but this one looked more sophisticated. It's called a jeep, Tommy explained. Noting Naruto's scrutiny. You don't have these where you're from. Not exactly, Naruto replied, cautiously approaching the vehicle. We have similar transportation, but less refined. The interior of the vehicle smelled of leather and some artificial substance Naruto couldn't identify. As Tommy started the engine, Naruto instinctively channeled a small amount of chakra to his hands. Ready to form a Rasengan if necessary. Tommy drove them through landscapes unlike anything in the shinobi world. Vast stretches of paved roads, buildings of glass and steel, and countless similar vehicles moving at high speeds. Naruto observed it all in silent fascination, mentally cataloging everything for later analysis. Your world seems peaceful, Naruto commented as they passed a park where children played without apparent concern for danger. It has its moments, Tommy replied cryptically. But we face our own threats. They pulled into the driveway of a modest house nestled against the edge of a forested area. As Naruto stepped from the vehicle, he sensed a faint energy signature emanating from beneath the property, something resonant and powerful. You have something interesting beneath your home, Naruto stated rather than asked. Tommy's expression remained neutral, but his eyes sharpened with renewed interest. Your sensory abilities are impressive. Part of the job description. Naruto replied with a hint of his trademark grin, the first since his arrival. Inside the house, Tommy gestured toward a bathroom. You might want to clean up. There are fresh towels and I can find you some clothes that might fit. Naruto nodded gratefully. Once alone, he created a shadow clone with barely a whisper of Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The clone would explore while he cleaned up, standard shinobi protocol in unfamiliar territory. The shower technology proved more complex than expected, but Naruto figured it out quickly. As hot water sluiced away blood and dirt, he conducted a thorough self-assessment. 3 cracked ribs, numerous lacerations, chakra levels at 30% and recovering slowly. Not ideal, but he'd fought with worse. This world has strange effects on our chakra, Kurama noted. It feels diluted here, but there's another energy present that seems compatible. I noticed, Naruto murmured. Something beneath this house resonates with sage chakra specifically. Almost like nature energy, but more concentrated. Clean and dressed in borrowed clothes that fit surprisingly well, Naruto dispelled his shadow clone, Instant L. Why gaining its reconnaissance information? The house contained no obvious weapons but numerous artifacts of unknown origin. Most importantly, there was indeed a concealed entrance to an underground facility. He found Tommy in the kitchen preparing tea. Feel better? The older man asked. Much, Naruto replied, accepting the steaming cup. So, when do I get to see what's beneath your house? The energy signature is strongest under the floor in your office. Tommy paused, cup halfway to his lips. After a moment's consideration, he set it down. Direct approach. I appreciate that. He led Naruto to his office and pulled a small dinosaur figurine on his desk. A section of the floor slid away, revealing a staircase. After you, Tommy gestured. The underground lab was a marvel of technology beyond anything in the shinobi world. Computers with multiple screens displayed data Naruto couldn't comprehend. Scientific equipment hummed with purpose. But what immediately drew his attention was a central pedestal holding several colored gemstones that pulsed with that same resonant energy he'd sensed. Dino gems, Tommy explained, watching Naruto's reaction carefully. Sources of immense Po.W are connected to the prehistoric era of our world. Naruto approached slowly, feeling the stones react to his presence. The green gem pulsed more brightly as he neared. They're alive, he said with certainty. Not in the way people are alive, but they have consciousness. Intention. Tommy's eyebrows rose. That's an astute observation. The gems bond with individuals whose natural energy matches their own. They grant special abilities and powers. Like Kekkei Genkei, Naruto murmured. At Tommy's questioning look, he clarified, bloodline abilities in my world. Genetic traits that give specific powers. Naruto reached toward the green gem, then hesitated. May I? Tommy nodded, intrigued by the stranger's perception. As Naruto's fingers hovered over the gem, his sage chakra instinctively activated at a low level. The stone responded dramatically, glowing brilliantly and rising slightly from its pedestal. Extraordinary, Tommy breathed. The gem recognizes something in you it's never responded to before. A sudden alarm blared through the lab. Tommy moved swiftly to a computer terminal. The city's under attack. This happens with unfortunate regularity here. The screen showed creatures Naruto had never seen before, reptilian humanoids wreaking havoc in what appeared to be a shopping district. Tyrannodrones, Tommy explained grimly. And something new with them, duh. T creature looks more powerful than usual. Naruto studied the footage, analyzing movement patterns and attack strategies. Your world's version of an invasion. I'm familiar with the concept. He rolled his shoulders, feeling Kurama's chakra accelerating his healing. Need a hand? Tommy assessed him with a veteran's eyes. You're still injured. I've fought through worse, Naruto stated matter-of-factly. Besides, best way to learn about a world is to fight alongside its defenders. After a moment's consideration, Tommy nodded. I can get us there in 10 minutes. I can get us there faster. Naruto countered with a confident smile. If you trust me. Minutes later, Tommy found himself experiencing the disorienting sensation of moving at shinobi speeds, leaping across rooftops with Naruto guiding him. The ninja had created a clone to carry him when necessary, demonstrating a casual use of power that confirmed he was indeed something extraordinary. They arrived at the mall to find chaos. Civilians fled screaming as a dozen tyrannodrones smashed through storefronts. At the center of the destruction stood a creature that resembled a humanoid porcupine with metallic quills that it could launch as projectiles. Quillshot, Tommy muttered. New design. Those spines are likely poisonous. Naruto assessed the battlefield with practiced ease. Minions first, then the leader. Standard formation. You've done this before, Tommy observed, slipping into a fighting stance. Different world, same problems, Naruto replied, his hands forming a familiar seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 5 perfect copies of Naruto appeared in puffs of smoke, each grinning with battle-ready confidence. Tommy's momentary surprise gave way to professional appreciation as the clones launched into action without hesitation. The Tyrannodrones found themselves suddenly outmatched. Where they expected frightened civilians, they faced a coordinated assault of orange and black blurs. Naruto's clones moved with lethal efficiency. Their taijutsu adapted to non-lethal but incapacitating strikes. Tommy joined the fray, his years of martial arts experience evident in every precise movement. Naruto noted with approval that the older man fought with the disciplined skill of a seasoned jonin. As they systematically dismantled the Tyrannodrones, a flash of yellow caught Naruto's attention. A young woman in civilian clothes, jeans and a yellow top, was evacuating children from a music store. When a Tyrannodrone lunged toward them, she moved with practiced precision, delivering a spinning kick that sent the creature crashing through a display window. Not a civilian then. Naruto redirected 2 clones to assist her while he and Tommy pressed toward Quillshot, who was observing the battle with apparent frustration. You're not the Rangers, the creature snarled, its voice grating like metal on stone. What trickery is this? Just some good old-fashioned hospitality, Naruto quipped, feeling something of his younger self resurface in the heat of battle. Courtesy of Reefside's welcome committee. Quillshot roared and launched a barrage of spines. Naruto's hands flashed through signs with practiced speed. Futon. Daidappa. A great breakthrough wave of wind chakra deflected the projectiles, sending them harmlessly into the ceiling. The creature's eyes widened in surprise. What manner of power is this? The kind you really don't want to mess with, Naruto replied, gathering chakra for his signature technique. A sphere of swirling blue energy formed in his palm, rotating with increasing intensity. Tommy moved with perfect complementary timing, engaging Quillshot from the front while Naruto circled to its flank. The coordination came naturally, as though they had fought together for years instead of minutes. Now, Tommy shouted, locking the creature's arms in a hold. Rasengan. Naruto drove the spiraling sphere into Quillshot's side. The impact sent the monster hurtling through a concrete pillar and into the far wall, where it slumped, smoking and defeated. As they approached the downed creature, a yellow blur somersaulted over a nearby railing. The man Naruto had noticed earlier landed beside them, her posture betraying formal combat training beneath her casual demeanor. "Doctor." "Oh," she acknowledged Tommy, then turned suspicious eyes toward Naruto. "New friend. Kira Ford. Meet Naruto Uzumaki." Tommy made the introduction. "He's visiting." From very far away, Naruto added with a diplomatic smile, extending his hand. Kira hesitated before accepting the handshake, her grip firm and assessing. Those were some moves I've never seen before. "And the duplicates, shadow clones," Naruto explained, dismissing his remaining copies with a gesture. "They disappeared in small puffs of smoke. Standard technique where I come from." "Which is where exactly?" Her tone remained skeptical, though tinged with undeniable curiosity. Before Naruto could formulate a response that wouldn't sound completely absurd, Quillshot suddenly lurched to its feet with unexpected speed. A spine launched directly at Kira's exposed back. Time seemed to slow as Naruto's combat instincts took over. He moved between Kira and the projectile, his hand snapping up to catch the spine mere inches from her body. In the same fluid motion, he channeled wind chalk raw through the captured spine and flung it back at Quillshot, where it embedded in the creature's shoulder with significantly greater force than it had been thrown. Quillshot shrieked in pain. "This isn't over." The monster's body glowed briefly before vanishing in a flash of green light. Kira stared at Naruto, reassessing. "Nice save." "Reflex," Naruto replied modestly. "You'd have done the same. How did you move that fast?" She pressed. "And catch that thing without getting poisoned." "Wind chakra barrier around my hand," he explained, demonstrating by creating a thin, visible layer of swirling energy over his palm. "Neutralizes toxins." Kira looked to Tommy, who gave an almost imperceptible nod confirming that Naruto could be trusted with certain information. "We should continue this conversation somewhere more private," Tommy suggested, nodding toward the gathering crowd of onlookers with smartphones recording the aftermath. Among them, Naruto noticed a young blonde woman, who was documenting the scene more methodically than the others. Unlike the shocked bystanders, she moved with purpose, capturing specific angles and taking notes between photographs. "Who's the focused blonde?" he asked quietly. "Cassidy Cornell," Kira answered with a hint of exasperation. "Local reporter with an unfortunate knack for showing up whenever trouble happens." As if sensing their attention, Cassidy looked directly at them. Her eyes widened with recognition at seeing Tommy and Kira, then narrowed with journalistic interest upon noticing Naruto. She immediately began making her way toward them. "Time to go," Tommy muttered. They slipped away through a service corridor, Naruto creating a shadow clone to draw Cassidy's attention in the opposite direction. The clone would disperse once they were clear, leaving the reporter with more questions than answers. "That's a useful trick," Kira commented as they exited through a loading dock. "One of many," Naruto replied with a modest shrug that did nothing to diminish the confidence in his eyes. They drove to a secluded area outside town, a cliff overlooking the ocean that Tommy explained was far from prying eyes or electronic surveillance. Naruto breathed deeply, sensing the natural energy of this world flowing around him. Different from home, yet fundamentally similar in ways that called to his sage abilities. "You're not just visiting from another country, are you?" Kira asked directly once they were settled. "No," Naruto admitted. "I'm from another dimension entirely. A world where energy called chakra allows people like me to perform techniques you'd consider impossible. After everything I've seen, impossible has lost meaning," Kira replied. "But interdimensional travel is a new one." Tommy leaned against his jeep. "Not as new as you might think. The multiverse theory has practical applications we've encountered before." Naruto gave them a condensed version of his arrival, the battle with an Otsutsuki clan member. The dimensional rift technique that had been meant to banish him to a pocket dimension, and his unexpected arrival in Reefside. I need to find a way back, he concluded. My friends, my village, they're still fighting. They need me. The energy readings from your arrival were unlike anything my equipment has recorded, Tommy said. But there might be a connection to the Dino gems. They responded to your chakra in unprecedented ways. Kira's expression had softened slightly during Naruto's explanation. So you're basically a warrior from another dimension who got pulled into our mess while fighting your own war. That's about the size of it, Naruto confirmed with a rueful smile. Story of my life. Never a dull moment. You handled yourself well against those Tyrannodrones, she acknowledged. And that Rasengan thing packed a serious punch. One of my signature techniques, Naruto explained. Though it was operating at maybe 40% capacity here. My chakra works differently in your world. Quote. Tommy looked thoughtful. The Dino gems might be able to help with that. They amplify existing abilities, adapt to their users' natural affinities. They responded to my sage chakra specifically. Naruto noted. The nature energy aspect seemed to resonate with them. That makes sense, Tommy explained. The gems contain dinosaur DNA and primal energy from Earth's prehistoric era, essentially. They're concentrated natural energy. Naruto's eyes lit with realization. That's why they felt alive to me. They're like focal points of nature chakra, Simul. AR to how Mount Myoboku functions in my world. Hira watched this exchange with growing curiosity. So what exactly are you suggesting, Drive? Oh, that he should try bonding with a Dino gem. I'm suggesting we study the interaction. Tommy clarified. If the gems can help stabilize his chakra in our dimension, it might provide insight into how he can return to his. And in the meantime, Naruto added, I can help with your Tyrannodrone problem. Consider it rent for crashing in your dimension. Hira smiled despite herself. Just like that. You'll fight monsters because it's the right thing to do. Naruto shrugged. It's kind of my specialty. Besides, sitting around feeling sorry for myself won't get me home any faster. Tommy regarded Naruto with growing respect. I might have a more mediate solution for your housing situation. Reefside High School needs a temporary physical education instructor. The position comes with accommodations on campus. You want me to teach? Naruto looked genuinely surprised. I'm a shinobi, not an educator. You've never trained others? Tommy asked skeptically. Naruto thought of Konohamaru and the many young shinobi he'd mentored over the years. Point taken. But won't I need credentials or something? Leave the paperwork to me, Tommy replied with the confidence of someone who had navigated similar challenges before. Principal Randall owes me a favor. What about his clothes? Hira gestured to Naruto's borrowed attire. No offense, but you can't keep wearing Drive O's dad clothes. Tommy rolled his eyes while Naruto laughed. I've got some money saved. Hira continued. Consider it an investment in our new ally. I'll pay you back, Naruto promised. Once I figure out how currency works here. As the sun began to set over Reefside, painting the sky in hues of orange that reminded Naruto poignantly of home, they agreed on next steps. Tommy would arrange the teaching position and continue researching the dimensional breach. Hira would help Naruto acquire necessities and acclimate to Earth culture. And Naruto would begin experimenting with how his chakra interacted with the Dino gems under controlled conditions. One last thing, Tommy said as they prepared to leave. That reporter, Cassidy Cornell. She's persistent and surprisingly insightful. Be careful what you say around her. Noted, Naruto replied, Thog. Something in his expression suggested he found the prospect of a determined journalist intriguing rather than concerning. Later that evening, after acquiring several sets of clothes that blended reasonably well with Earth fashion while accommodating freedom of movement, Naruto stood on the balcony of the guest room in Tommy's home. Stars glittered overhead in constellations entirely unfamiliar to him. You're adapting quickly to this world, Kurama observed from within. Necessity, Naruto replied quietly. But I can feel them, Kurama. Hinata, Sakura, Sasuke, Shikamaru, all of them. They're still fighting, still searching for me. Then we will find our way back, the fox stated with certainty. But these Dino gems interest me. Their energy, it's primitive but potent. Calm. Addable with Sage Chakra in ways I haven't seen before. Naruto nodded, feeling the distant resonance of the gems even from upstairs. Tommy thinks they might help stabilize my chakra here. If I can fully access my abilities. You could create a dimensional rift of your own, Kurama finished the thought. But tread carefully. New power always comes with price. When has that ever stopped us? Naruto smiled, gazing up at the alien stars of this world that needed heroes just as much as his own. The following morning, Naruto rose before dawn, his body instinctively adhering to shinobi discipline ingrained over decades. He moved through a series of stretches and chakra exercises, noting with satisfaction that his reserves had replenished significantly overnight. Tommy found him in the garden, seated in lotus position with natural energy gathering around him in visible currents. That's remarkable, Tommy commented, keeping his distance to avoid disrupting the process. I can actually see the energy flowing into you. Naruto opened eyes rimmed with orange pigmentation, the mark of an active sage mode. In my world, very few shinobi can master sage mode. It requires perfect balance between physical and spiritual energy, plus the natural energy from one's surroundings. And the eye coloration, side effect, Naruto explained, allowing the sage chakra to dissipate. Better than turning into a stone-toed statue, which happens if you get the balance wrong. Tommy's eyebrows rose. Harsh learning curve. You have no idea, Naruto chuckled, standing fluidly. But it's worth the risk. Sage mode amplifies all abilities and grants sensory perception beyond normal limits. Similar to how the Dino gems enhance their users, Tommy noted. Speaking of which, I've prepared the lab for some controlled tests today. They spent the morning conducting a series of experiments with the Dino gems. Tommy's scientific background complemented Naruto's intuitive understanding of chakra, resulting in several promising discoveries. The gems responded differently to various chakra natures: wind, water, fire, earth, and lightning, with each colored gem showing particular affinity for specific elements. Most significantly, when Naruto entered Sage mode near the gems, all 5 stones activated simultaneously, creating a harmonic resonance that amplified his sensory abilities dramatically. I can sense the entire city, Naruto gasped, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of information. Every person, every building, even the molecular composition of everything. Tommy quickly documented the readings, his expression betraying scientific excitement. The gems are acting as conduits, channeling your sage energy and returning it amplified. I've never seen them synchronize like this with anyone. Before they could explore further, an alarm sounded. The computer screen showed Tyrannodrones appearing in the city park, accompanied by Quillshot, now sporting metallic armor reinforcements over its wounded shoulder. Round 2, Naruto observed, already moving toward the stairs. Any sign of Kira or the other rangers? Kira's across town, Tommy replied, checking a tracking system. The others are out of state at a science competition. It's just us for now. They reached the park in record time, Naruto carrying Tommy via a shadow clone again. The scene was chaos. Families scattered as Tyrannodrones overturned picnic tables and destroyed playground equipment. Spreading out to maximize terror, Naruto analyzed quickly. The leaders using standard intimidation tactics. Tommy nodded grimly. Mesogogue, the being controlling these creatures, feeds on fear energy. Then let's give him indigestion, Naruto replied, forming his signature cross-finger seal. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 20 shadow clones materialized, immediately beginning evacuation procedures for the civilians while creating a defensive perimeter. The real Naruto and Tommy charged toward Quillshot, who seemed momentarily taken aback by the multiple identical opponents. You again, the creature snarled upon recognizing them. My new armor will protect me from your energy attacks. We'll see about that, Naruto replied, assessing the metallic plating that now covered critical areas of the monster's anatomy. He glanced at Tommy. Physical strikes first to test the armor's limits. Tommy nodded, and they engaged in synchronized taijutsu assault. Their fighting styles complemented each other naturally, Tommy's disciplined martial arts flowing seamlessly alongside Naruto's adaptive, unpredictable movements. Each strike probed for weaknesses in Quillshot's defenses. The armor proved problematic, deflecting even chakra-enhanced punches. When Naruto attempted a Rasengan, The swirling energy dissipated harmlessly against the metal plating. Energy-absorbent alloy, Tommy deduced after a particularly powerful kick left barely a dent. We need something that can pierce or bypass it. Naruto jumped back to reassess, his tactical mind racing. I've got something, but I'll need 30 seconds to prepare it. You've got it. Tommy immediately increased the intensity of his attacks, drawing Quillshot's attention completely. Naruto summoned a shadow clone and began the familiar process of shape-and-nature transformation, compressing wind-natured chakra into his palm while the clone helped stabilize and rotate the energy. The result was a Rasengan with a distinctive shuriken-like shape surrounding it, emitting a high-pitched screech. Tommy, clear, he shouted. Tommy disengaged with perfect timing as Naruto charged forward, the wind release, Rasenshuriken howling in his hand. What is that? Quillshot backed away, sensing danger. Something your armor can't handle. Naruto replied, launching the technique. Wind release. Rasenshuriken. The jutsu struck Quillshot's chest plate and initially seemed to stop. Then microscopic wind blades began penetrating at the cellular level, bypassing the armor entirely. The monster shrieked as countless invisible cuts severed its internal structure. The Rasenshuriken expanded into a perfect sphere of destructive wind chakra, completely engulfing Quillshot. When the energy dissipated, there was nothing left of the creature except scattered armor fragments and a fading green light as its essence retreated to wherever these monsters originated. Tommy stared in astonishment. That was extremely effective. Naruto flexed his hand, which showed slight strain from using the technique. Cellular level cutting. No armor can fully protect against it, though it takes more chakra than I'd prefer in this dimension. A slow clapping sound interrupted them. They turned to find Cassidy Cornell approaching, cameraman in tow, having captured the entire battle from behind a nearby oak tree. Spectacular show, gentlemen, she called out, microphone already in hand. Cassidy Cornell, Reefside News. Care to explain how you just disintegrated that monster with what looked like a miniature screaming hurricane? Tommy stepped forward diplomatically. Ms. Cornell, this area isn't safe yet. We need to finish securing. I've been covering monster attacks for years. Drive. Oliver, she interrupted confidently. I know how to stay out of the danger zone. Her attention shifted to Naruto. You're new to Reefside. Care to introduce yourself to our viewers? Naruto assessed the young woman quickly. Determined intelligence shone in her eyes, along with something he recognized from his own youth, he desired to be acknowledged for one's skills and persistence. She wasn't just seeking a story, she was establishing her territory. Naruto Uzumaki, he offered with a respectful nod. Just helping out where I can. And those duplicates of yourself. The energy techniques. Are you connected to the Power Rangers? She fired questions rapidly, advancing with microphone extended. Ms. Cornell, Tommy interjected firmly. Please, call me Cassidy, she corrected, still focused on Naruto. Cassidy, Naruto took over smoothly. I understand you're doing your job, and doing it well from what I can see. But there are still civilians who need help, and some questions that shouldn't be answered on camera. Something in his tone, respectful of her profession while firmly establishing boundaries, oust her to reassess him with newfound interest. Off the record, then, she suggested, signaling her cameraman to lower his equipment. Another time, Naruto promised with genuine sincerity. When lives aren't potentially at risk. Cassidy considered this, then nodded professionally. I'll hold you to that, Mr. Uzumaki. She handed him a business card. My direct number, for when you're ready for that exclusive interview. As she walked away, Tommy gave Naruto an impressed look. You handled that better than most. She usually doesn't back down so easily. She reminds me of someone I knew, Naruto replied, tucking the card into his pocket. Persistent, ambitious, but ultimately more interested in truth than sensationalism. The remainder of the day passed in continued experiments with the Dino gems. By evening, they had established that Naruto could temporarily channel the energy of individual gems through his chakra network, gaining limited access to their specific powers, super speed, strength, invisibility, and other abilities, though the process was taxing. Hira joined them later, bringing dinner and news that she'd arranged an apartment for Naruto near the school where he would be teaching. It's nothing fancy, she explained over takeout containers of pizza, a food Naruto immediately declared superior to most dishes in his world. But it's furnished and within walking distance of campus. I appreciate it, Naruto said sincerely. Both of you have been incredibly helpful to someone who literally fell out of the sky. Speaking of which, Kira said, I've been thinking about your situation. If you came through once, theoretically you could go back the same way, right? Ideally, Naruto agreed, but the technique that sent me here was Otsutsuki clan space time ninjutsu. Their dimensional manipulation abilities are beyond even my understanding. But you said your chakra and the Dino gems resonate, she pressed. If the gems contain primordial energy connected to the fabric of our reality. Quote, Tommy nodded thoughtfully. She's onto something. The gems have demonstrated reality-altering properties before. Combined with your unique chakra. It's possible, Naruto admitted. Hope kindling. But it would require precise control and significantly more power than I can currently channel in this dimension. Then that's our goal, Kira declared with unexpected determination. Help you master the gems, energy enough to create a way home. Naruto studied her with newfound appreciation. Beneath her tough exterior lay a fierce loyalty to helping others, even interdimensional strangers. Why? He asked simply. Kira met his gaze directly. Because you didn't ask to be dragged into our fight, but you jumped in anyway. Because you helped evacuation before engaging the monster. And because, she hesitated, then continued firmly, because I know what it's like to be separated from where you belong. A moment of understanding passed between them, recognition of kindred spirits despite vastly different origins. The next morning brought Naruto's first day at Reefside High School. Tommy had somehow arranged credentials and paperwork overnight, smoothing administrative hurdles with remarkable efficiency. Principal Randall, a severe woman with penetrating eyes that reminded Naruto uncomfortably of Ibiki Morino from Torture and Interrogati. Gave him a cursory orientation before releasing him to the athletic fields. Try not to destroy my school, Mr. Uzumaki, she said by way of farewell. Dr. Oliver vouches for your unorthodox methods. But I expect results and discipline. His first class consisted of 30 teenagers with varying degrees of athletic ability and motivation. Naruto, drawing on his experience training young genin, quickly assessed their capabilities through simple exercises. By the session's end, even the most reluctant students were engaged in modified taijutsu drills that he presented as specialized martial arts conditioning. During lunch break, he sensed a familiar energy signature approaching the field. Kira, accompanied by an unfamiliar young man with technology skills evident in the devices he carried. Ethan James. The young man introduced himself with an enthusiastic handshake. Former Blue Ranger and tech specialist. Dr. O filled me in on your situation. He's here to help monitor the gem experiments, Kira explained. And to geek out over interdimensional travel, apparently. Ethan didn't deny the accusation. Do you realize the scientific implications? Multiple realities with different fundamental energy properties. It's like every theoretical physics paper I've ever read suddenly became practical application. Naruto couldn't help smiling at the young man's enthusiasm. Where I'm from, we focus more on the practical applications than the theory. Dimensional travel techniques exist, but they're classified as forbidden jutsu due to their danger and chakra requirements. But you've used space-time ninjutsu before, Ethan pressed, clearly having been briefed extensively. Your transportation technique, the Hiraishin, manipulates space-time coordinates. Not my technique, Naruto corrected. My father's. And it's not truly dimensional travel, more like folding space within the same dimension. The principles are related but distinct. Their conversation continued through lunch, with Ethan asking increasingly technical questions about chakra theory and dimensional mechanics. Naruto found himself enjoying the academic discussion, something rarely prioritized in the action-oriented shinobi world. As afternoon classes began, Naruto noticed Cassidy Cornell watching from the edge of the field, notepad in hand. She made no attempt to approach, simply observing Hi's teaching methods with professional interest. After school hours, Naruto joined Tommy, Kira, and Ethan in the lab for more extensive testing. With Ethan's technological expertise, they made significant progress mapping how Naruto's chakra interacted with different gem energies. The compatibility is unprecedented, Ethan noted, reviewing data streams. It's like your chakra network was designed to channel Dino energy. Not designed, Naruto corrected, but adapted. Sage chakra is specifically meant to harmonize with natural energy sources. The gems are essentially concentrated nature chakra from your world. A new test involved Naruto entering Sage mode while holding the green Dino gem. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. The gem's energy flowed seamlessly into his chakra network, enhancing his already amplified Sage abilities to extraordinary levels. His sensory perception expanded to encompass the entire city and beyond, while his physical capabilities increased exponentially. This is intense, Naruto managed, his voice resonating with harmonized energy. The orange pigmentation around his eyes took on a greenish tint, while the gem pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The readings are off the charts, Ethan marveled, watching displays that threatened to overload. It's like the gem recognizes your Sage chakra as its natural counterpart. Try accessing the gem's specific abilities, Tommy suggested. Naruto focused, channeling the energy in the way Tommy had described. Instantly, his body phased, becoming partially transparent. Invisibility, here, I identified the green gem's primary power. Except it's different with you, more like selective phase shifting. I can control exactly how substantial I am, Naruto confirmed, making his right arm OLED while the rest of his body remained translucent. And I can still use chakra techniques while phased. To demonstrate, he created a Rasengan in his solidified hand, the swirling energy taking on a green tint from the gem's influence. The applications are remarkable, Tommy observed. But the strain on your system must be significant. Naruto nodded, releasing both the gem connection and Sage mode. He staggered slightly, catching himself against a nearby console. It's manageable but intense, like trying to control a Biju's chakra, but with different resistance patterns. Biju? Ethan questioned. Tailed beasts, Naruto explained, catching his breath. Massive chakra entities in my world. I'm the Jinchuriki, host of the Nine Tails, Kurama. Their expressions revealed Tommy hadn't shared this particular detail. You might as well tell them everything, Kurama commented internally. These humans have proven themselves trustworthy thus far. Naruto nodded imperceptibly, then gave his new allies a condensed but honest explanation of his status as a Jinchuriki and his partnership with Kurama. To their credit, none showed fear, only fascination and concern for the implications. So you have another sentient being sharing your consciousness. Kira clarified, processing this revelation. Partner, not passenger, Naruto corrected. Kurama and I share a mutual respect and friendship forged through years of working together. Tell the female I appreciate her lack of the usual human prejudice, Kurama rumbled. Naruto smiled. He likes you. Says he appreciates you not freaking out. Kira raised an eyebrow. After everything I've seen as a ranger, a giant fox spirit is actually one of the less weird things I've encountered. Their testing continued over the following days, establishing that Naruto could effectively channel any individual Dino gem's energy, though each created different resonance patterns with his chakra. The red gem amplified his already substantial stamina and strength. The blue gem enhanced his strategic thinking and problem-solving abilities. The black gem complemented his shadow techniques, allowing greater manipulation of darkness. Most surprisingly, the yellow gem, which Kira had once bonded with, responded almost eagerly to his chakra, enhancing his sensory perception and creating harmonic sound waves that could be weaponized or used for complex communication across vast distances. It remembers you, Naruto told Kira after one particularly successful test with the yellow gem. There's an echo of your energy signature still resonating within it. We never fully separate from our gems, she explained. The bond remains even after active power transfer ends. A week into Naruto's stay in Reefside, a pattern emerged. He taught physical education during school hours, developing a reputation for unorthodox but effective teaching methods. Afternoons were dedicated to gem experimentation and training with Tommy and the Rangers. Evenings found him adapting to Earth culture with Kira's guidance, exploring everything from music to technology to social customs. Through it all, Naruto maintained regular sage meditation, both to replenish his chakra and to send out sensory pulses seeking any trace of his home dimension. During one such session in his apartment, he detected something unexpected, a faint but familiar chakra signature at the edge of his perception range. His eyes snapped open, the sage markings around them more pronounced than usual. Impossible, he whispered, but there was no mistaking Hat's signature, distorted by dimensional barriers, yet unmistakably familiar. Somewhere in Reefside, someone else from his world had arrived. He immediately contacted Tommy, who called an emergency meeting at the lab. Kira and Ethan arrived within minutes, concern evident in their expressions. "You're certain?" Tommy asked once Naruto explained what he'd sensed. "Absolutely," Naruto confirmed. He chakra signature is distinctive, a specific person I've known for years. But it's weak, like they're either suppressing it intentionally or struggling to maintain it in this dimension. Who? Kira asked the obvious question. Naruto's expression reflected complex emotions: hope, concern, and profound relief. Ino Yamanaka, one of Konoha's elite intelligence operatives. A friend. Could she they been pulled through during the same event that brought you here? Ethan theorized. Unlikely. Naruto shook his head. The dimensional rift was specifically targeted at me during battle. More likely she came through deliberately. Searching for me. Searching how? Tommy pressed, already formulating strategies. If interdimensional travel is as difficult as you've described, the Yamanaka clan possesses unique mind transfer techniques, Naruto explained. Ino specifically has developed advanced applications that allow her consciousness to traverse great distances. If anyone could track me across dimensions, it would be her. Quote. Kira frowned slightly. So what's our move? We can't exactly put out an APB on an interdimensional ninja. We start with the location where I sensed her, Naruto decided. And I'll create shadow clones to search the city quadrant by quadrant. Ethan was already typing at a terminal. I can scan for anomalous energy signatures matching the frequency patterns we've documented from your chakra. Quote. If she's looking for you, Tommy reasoned, she'll be monitoring for your energy signature as well. Perhaps a controlled pulse of chakra at your maximum output would draw her attention. Naruto nodded. Like a flare, but it would also alert any hostile forces to my location. We'll be ready, Kira stated firmly, her hand unconsciously moving to where her Dino morpher would be. They moved to an abandoned quarry outside the city, a location remote enough for safety yet with clear lines of sight in all directions. Tommy, Kira, and Ethan took up defense. I've positions while Naruto prepared for the chakra pulse. Remember, Tommy cautioned, we don't know if your friend came alone or what condition she might be in. Approach with caution. Naruto entered sage mode, then formed a single hand seal. Here goes nothing. Chakra pulse technique. Golden energy erupted from his body in a perfect sphere, expanding outward at tremendous speed. The wave of pure chakra rolled across the landscape, causing local wildlife to scatter and the very air to shimmer with power. For several long moments, nothing happened. Then, on the quarry's far ridge, a figure appeared, slender, blonde. Dressed in purple clothing that blended elements of shinobi attire with earth fashion adaptations. Naruto's face broke into a wide smile of genuine joy. Ino, the woman's composed expression cracked into equal happiness. Naruto, you impossible, unpredictable knucklehead. She jumped down from the ridge, crossing the distance with practiced shinobi speed. They met, in a collision of relieved laughter and tight embrace, comrades reunited across impossible odds. When they separated, Ino quickly assessed him for injuries with a medic's practiced eye. 6 months I've been searching for you, she scolded. Though her smile never faded. 6 months in this strange dimension, trying to locate your chakra signature. 6 months. Naruto looked stunned. I've only been here a week. Time dilation between dimensional breaches, Tommy theorized, approaching cautiously with the others. Fascinating. Ino turned toward the newcomers, her posture instantly shifting to alert defensiveness. And who are these people? Friends, Naruto assured her quickly. They've been helping me understand this world and find a way home. This is Dr. Tommy Oliver, Kira Ford, and Ethan James. Ino studied them with the penetrating gaze of a trained intelligence operative before relaxing slightly. Any friends of Naruto's must be exceptional people. Thank you for looking after him. He's been looking after us just as much, Kira replied with genuine respect. Those monsters didn't know what hit them. Monsters. Ino raised an elegant eyebrow at Naruto. You've been here 1 week and already found trouble to throw yourself into. What can I say? Naruto grinned. Some things are universal constants. You arrived 6 months ago. Tommy asked Ino, scientific curiosity evident. Were you pulled through accidentally like Naruto, or deliberate? Ino confirmed. After Naruto disappeared during the Otsutsuki battle, we tracked the dimensional distortion pattern. Hinata could see traces of it with her Byakugan. I volunteered to attempt a mind transfer technique modified for cross-dimensional application. You risked a completely experimental technique. Naruto looked concerned despite the successful outcome. For you, without hesitation, Ino replied simply. Besides, I left a chakra thread connected to my body in our world. Insurance policy. Is your physical body here, or is this a manifestation? Ethan asked, fascinated by the technical aspects. Fully physical transfer, Ino explained. The technique evolved from consciousness projection to complete physical transportation. Though it nearly depleted my chakra reserves completely. How did you survive here for 6 months? Naruto wondered. A slight smile crossed Ino's face. I adapted. Established an identity as a cognitive behavioral therapist. Turns out mind techniques translate well to psychotherapy. I've been gathering information and resources while searching for you. A therapist, Naruto laughed. Perfect cover. My practice is actually quite successful, she noted with pride. Though I've had to be careful not to accidentally use actual mind techniques during sessions. Their reunion continued as they returned to Tommy's lab, where Ino shared everything she had learned during her months in Reefside. Most significantly, she had detected patterns of dimensional instability throughout the region, suggesting the barrier between worlds was thinner here than elsewhere. That would explain why the Otsutsuki's technique sent you specifically to this location, Tommy reasoned. Path of least resistance between dimensions. It also explains why the Dino gems are so responsive to chakra, Ethan added. They might act as natural stabilizers for the interdimensional barrier. Ino examined the gems with professional interest. The energy signature is similar to specialized nature chakra, but with unique properties I've never encountered before. We've been experimenting with how they interact with Naruto's sage abilities, Kira explained. The results have been pretty spectacular. I'd like to observe these experiments, Ino requested. My sense. Ori abilities aren't as broad as Naruto's sage mode, but they're more precise for detail work. As the day progressed into evening, Naruto felt a profound sense of hope he hadn't experienced since arriving in this dimension. With Ino's presence came not just the comfort of a familiar ally, but tangible proof that connection between worlds was possible. Others will come, Ino told him quietly when they had a moment alone. Hinata was preparing to attempt the journey next if I didn't return with you within a predetermined timeframe. The mention of Hinata sent a complex wave of emotions through Naruto. Their relationship had evolved over the years into a deep friendship built on mutual respect, though not quite the romantic connection she had once hoped for. How is everyone? He asked, thoughts turning to all those he'd left behind. Fighting, surviving, missing you. Ino's expression softened. Sasuke has been searching tirelessly for a way to track you across dimensions. Sakura's been researching medical applications to stabilize chakra for dimensional travel. Shikamaru developed 300 different strategies for your retrieval within the first week alone. Naruto swallowed past the sudden tightness in his throat. And the village stands strong, Ino assured him. Kakashi resumed Hokage duties temporarily. They haven't given up on you, Naruto. None of us have. Their conversation was interrupted by the lab's alarm system. The monitor showed Tyrannodrones appearing downtown, accompanied by a new monster, a chimeric creation resembling a praying mantis with metallic blades for arms. Looks like I arrived just in time for some action, Ino observed, already moving toward the exit. Just like old times, right Naruto? He grinned, feeling more like himself than he had since arriving. Just like old times. As they prepared to face this new threat, Naruto glanced at the assembled group, Tommy with his veteran's experience, Kira with her fierce determination, Ethan with his technological genius, and Ino with her elite shinobi skills. Different worlds, different powers, united purpose. For the first time since arriving in this dimension, Naruto felt something beyond determination to return home. He felt the beginnings of genuine connection to this world and its protectors. Let's show these monsters what happens when rangers and shinobi join forces, he declared. And in that moment, with the Dino gems resonating with his chakra and allies both old and new at his side, Naruto embraced his temporary role as Reefside's interdimensional defender, the Dino Sage Ranger. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Convergence of Powers. Emerald energy crackled around Naruto's fingertips, unstable and wild. The green Dino gem hovered inches above his palm, susp. NDED in a matrix of sage chakra that shimmered with an otherworldly luminescence. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he struggled to maintain the delicate balance between the two power sources. The frequencies aren't aligning, he muttered through gritted teeth. It's like trying to mix oil and water. Perhaps you're approaching it too directly, Ino suggested, her analytical eyes tracking the energy fluctuations. Your sage chakra is attempting to dominate the gem's power rather than harmonizing with it. Tommy's underground lab hummed with scientific equipment, monitoring devices capturing every fluctuation in the energy exchange. 3 weeks had passed since Naruto's arrival in Reefside, and progress with the Dino gems remained frustratingly inconsistent. Brief moments of perfect sync. Ronization would give way to chaotic power surges that threatened to overload the lab's containment systems. She's right, Haley Zichter said, analyzing data streams on multiple screens. The technical genius behind the Ranger's operation had taken an immediate interest in the interdimensional visitors. The gem's energy signature changes whenever you push harder. It's responding defensively. Naruto exhaled slowly, allowing the sage markings around his eyes to fade. The gem descended gently to its containment unit as he released the technique. In sage training, we're taught to remain perfectly still, to become one with nature rather than trying to control it. So stop trying to bend the gem to your will, Tommy concluded, stroking his chin thoughtfully. Let it accept you on its terms. Kira Ford, leaning against a console with arms crossed, raised an eyebrow. You make it sound like the gem has a consciousness. Doesn't it? Naruto's blue eyes met hers directly. You were bonded with the yellow gem. Did it ever feel like just an object to you? A moment of thoughtful silence passed before Kira reluctantly nodded. It always felt aware. Like it chose me rather than the other way around. Precisely. Naruto smiled, grateful for her validation. These gems aren't tools, they're more like sentient energy beings with their own will. Which might explain why they respond differently to you than to any previous ranger, Tommy theorized. Your chakra network gives you a unique connection potential. Haley tapped a series of commands into her keyboard, bringing you a three-dimensional model of Naruto's chakra pathways overlaid with Dino gem energy patterns. Look at these intersection points. When your sage chakra activates, these nodal junctions expand exponentially. If you could maintain that receptive state without actively directing the energy flow. Worth a try. Naruto rolled his shoulders, releasing tension. Different approach this time. He settled into a meditative position. Eyes closed, hands forming a relaxed seal. Unlike his previous attempts at forceful chakra manipulation, this time he simply opened his pathways, creating space rather than exerting control. Minutes passed in silence. The monitoring equipment registered subtle shifts in energy patterns as Naruto's breathing slowed and deepened. Orange pigmentation gradually formed around his closed eyes, the hallmark of sage mode. Something's happening, Ino whispered, her sensory abilities detecting the change before the instruments could capture it. The green Dino gem began to pulse, its rhythm gradually synchronizing with Naruto's heartbeat. Motes of emerald light drifted upward from the containment unit, swirling in gentle spirals before descending toward Naruto's motionless form. Remarkable, Tommy breathed. The gem is initiating contact. The verdant particles settled onto Naruto's skin, not simply resting on the surface but merging with his chakra network. Faint green lines appeared beneath his skin, tracing pathways alongside the natural blue glow of his chakra channels. When Naruto finally opened his eyes, the standard orange sage markings now contained flecks of green. His expression reflected not strain but wonder. I can feel it, he said softly. Not just its power, but its history. This gem has witnessed the dawn of this world's existence. He raised his hand, and without any visible effort, his entire body phased into partial transparency, the green gem's primary ability. But unlike when Rangers used this power, Naruto maintained complete control over which parts of his body phased into what degree. The synchronization is perfect, Haley marveled, checking readings. Power level stable across all metrics. Naruto stood, his movements fluid and precise. It's not just lending me its abilities, it's sharing knowledge. The gem remembers every bearer it's ever had, every battle it's witnessed. Kira pushed away from the console, approaching with newfound interest. Can you access specific memories? A thoughtful expression crossed Naruto's face as he concentrated. Not exactly. It's more like impressions. Emotions. The gem doesn't think in linear terms. Try the yellow gem next, Tommy suggested, retrieving it from its containment field. Naruto gently released his connection to the green gem, the emerald traces fading from his chakra network. As he reached for the yellow stone, a subtle change came over his expression, anticipation mixed with curiosity. This one feels different already, he noted. More resonant. The yellow gem responded almost eagerly to his touch, pulsing brightly the moment his fingers made contact. The synchronization process happened much faster this time, with golden energy immediately harmonizing with his chakra pathways. A sound like distant music filled the lab, a harmonic resonance emanating from the interaction between Sage Chakra and the yellow gem's sonic properties. Kira stepped forward, drawn by the familiar energy signature. It recognizes me. Naruto nodded, his eyes now rimmed with orange and gold markings. Through me, it senses your presence. The connection you formed never truly severed. He extended his hand toward her, palm up. Would you like to reconnect, just for a moment? Hesitation flickered across her face before curiosity won out. She placed her fingertips against his palm, and gasped as golden energy flowed between them, creating a temporary bridge. For a breathtaking moment, Kira experienced sage perception through their linked energies, the expanded awareness of everything around them, from the smallest microbes to the vast electromagnetic field spanning the city. Simultaneously, Naruto glimpsed fragments of Kira's memories through the gem's connection. Her first transformation, battles alongside her teammates, the bittersweet moment of surrendering active ranger status. They separated with shared expressions of wonder. The brief connection leaving both slightly breathless. Kira struggled to find adequate words. Intimate, Ino supplied with a knowing smile, her psychology training making her particularly attuned to the emotional undercurrents in the room. Tommy cleared his throat, professionally redirecting attention to the scientific implications. If the gems facilitate this kind of exchange, they might provide the communication bridge we need for creating a stable dimensional portal. Theoretical physics supports the concept, Haley added, already modeling new equations. Quantum entanglement across dimensional boundaries becomes viable with a properly attuned facilitator. Naruto released the yellow gem's energy, returning to his normal state. Each gem offers different insights. We should test them all systematically. Over the next several hours, Naruto attempted harmonization with each of the remaining Dino gems. The red gem granted enhanced strength and resilience but required greater emotional intensity to fully activate. The blue gem amplified his analytical abilities to extraordinary levels, allowing him to perceive patterns and connections invisible to normal perception. The black gem proved most challenging, its energy darker and more primal, resonating with aspects of Kurama's power in ways that required careful balancing. By session's end, Naruto had established baseline compatibility with all 5 gems individually, though maintaining connection with multiple gems simultaneously remained elusive. Progress, Tommy declared with satisfaction. More than I expected this quickly. But still not enough to create a stable dimensional corridor, Haley cautioned. These are baby steps toward a marathon finish line. Ino, who had been quietly observing most of the session, finally spoke. There's another approach we haven't considered. My mind transfer techniques already demonstrate capacity for cross-dimensional application. Combined with the gems, energy and Naruto's Sage Mode, a 3-part synchronization, Haley finished the thought, eyes widening at the implications. Theoretically sound, but the power requirements would be enormous. And potentially dangerous, Tommy warned. Combining unknown technologies always carries risks. Naruto's stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, breaking the serious atmosphere. He grinned sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head in a gesture reminiscent of his younger self. Maybe we table the dimension-hopping discussion until after food. I'm running on empty here. Kira checked her watch. There's a new ramen place downtown that opened last month. Surprisingly authentic, according to the reviews. Ramen. Naruto's eyes lit up with childlike enthusiasm. Now you're speaking my language. The transition from high-stakes energy experiments to mundane dinner plans highlighted the strange duality of their situation, interdimensional warriors taking breaks for noodles and conversation. I should get home, Haley said, gathering her equipment. Early supplier meeting tomorrow for the cybercafe. And I have therapy clients beginning at 8, Ino added. The dimensional barriers will still be there after we've all rested. They departed Tommy's house in separate directions, Haley to her apartment above her business, Ino to her rented condo near her practice. Tommy remaining at his home laboratory to analyze the day's findings. Naruto and Kira headed downtown in her yellow car, an older model that she'd customized extensively. You were holding back during the tests, Kira observed once they were alone, her perception sharper than Naruto had given her credit for. He glanced at her, measuring his response. What makes you say that? Your energy signature fluctuated when Tommy mentioned combining all the gems. Like you already tried it and didn't want to mention the results. A rueful smile tugged at his lips. Perceptive. Most people, can't read chakra fluctuations that precisely. I spent years attuned to Dino energy. You develop a sense for these things. She navigated a turn without taking her eyes off the road. So, what happened when you tried it? Naruto sighed, gazing out the window at Reefside's evening skyline. It was too much. Not physically. I've handled worse power surges. But informationally. All 5 gems accessing my consciousness simultaneously. The input overload was like having 5 different lifetimes of memories dumped into my head at once. That's why you've been getting those headaches. He nodded. Kurama helps filter it, but even he was overwhelmed by the data stream. You should tell Tommy. I will, Naruto promised. Just wanted to understand it better first. Figure out if I was doing something wrong or if it's an inherent incompatibility. They arrived at Nozomi Ramen, a small establishment tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing shop. The interior was warmly lit with paper lanterns. Traditional decorations adorning walls of exposed brick. Despite being relatively new, the restaurant had cultivated an atmosphere of comfortable authenticity. The aroma hit Naruto the moment they entered, complex broth. Fresh noodles, the distinctive scent of proper chashu pork. For a heartbeat, he was transported back to Ichiraku's stand in Konoha, and unexpected homesickness washed over him. Kira noticed his momentary stillness. Too much. He shook his head, composing himself. Just right, actually. Smells like home. They were seated at a corner table, slightly removed from other diners. Naruto examined the menu with the serious concentration of a connoisseur, while Kira watched with amusement. I never pegged you for a ramen expert, she commented. Some men collect cars or weapons. Naruto replied without looking up. I collect ramen experiences. There's an art to proper noodle elasticity and broth complexity that transcends simple food. Their server, a PP roached. A young woman with a warm smile and efficient manner. Ready to order. Tonkatsu ramen, extra chashu, a hitama egg, and could I get additional Naruto maki on the side? He winked at the COI. Incidents of ordering a food sharing his name. Shoyu ramen for me, Kira added. Regular spice level. When the server departed, Naruto leaned back, studying his dinner companion with newfound interest. Their brief energy connection earlier had revealed aspects of Kira he hadn't previously glimpsed. Her passionate dedication to music, fierce loyalty to friends, and carefully maintained independence. So, he began conversationally. Former Yellow Ranger, current musician, occasional monster fighter. What's your story, Kira Ford? She raised an eyebrow. You got most of my biography during our little mind meld earlier. Impressions and fragments, he corrected. Context without narrative, like seeing snapshots without knowing what happened between the pictures. Kira considered this while fidgeting with her chopsticks. Not much to tell that isn't in those snapshots. Small town girl with big musical dreams, accidentally stumbled into superhero business, tried to balance normal life with saving the world. Now working on my second album while teaching music part-time. And still dropping everything to fight monsters when they appear, Naruto added softly. That part's not in your official bio, is it? Some responsibilities you never fully walk away from. She met his gaze directly. You understand that better than most, I'd guess. He nodded, recognizing the kinship in their situations. The weight never really leaves, does it? The knowledge that you have power others don't, and the obligation that comes with it. Exactly. Something in her posture relaxed at being understood without judgment. What about you? What's Naruto Uzumaki's story when he's not being an interdimensional sage warrior? Their food arrived before he could answer, steaming bowls placed before them with artistic presentation. Naruto inhaled deeply, eyes closing momentarily in appreciation. Well, the server asked with a smile. How does it compare to what you're used to? Respectably close, he replied sincerely. The broth has proper body and the noodle texture looks promising. After the server departed, Naruto sampled the ramen with the focused attention of a professional food critic. Considering each element before nodding with approval. Solid 8.5 out of 10. Ichiraku's back home is still champion, but this is excellent. You're serious about your noodles, Kira observed, amused. Life's too short for mediocre ramen. He twirled noodles expertly with his chopsticks. As for my story, it's complicated. Child of prophecy, village pariah turned hero, container of a chakra beast. Former candidate for Hokage. That's like your president, but for ninjas. Former candidate, you turned it down. A shadow crossed his features. Realized the job wouldn't suit me. Too much paperwork, not enough direct action. I'm better in the field than behind a desk. So I took on special assignments, interdimensional diplomatic missions, training the next generation, until the Otsutsuki situation pulled me away from all of it. Do you miss it? The recognition, the hero status? Naruto considered the question with unexpected seriousness. Sometimes. But mostly I miss the people. Connections matter more than titles or accomplishments. Their conversation flowed naturally through dinner, trading stories of battles fought and lessons learned. Despite their vastly different backgrounds, they found common ground in the unique perspective that came with wielding extraordinary power while trying to maintain ordinary lives. As they exited the restaurant, the evening eye carried a subtle electricity, the atmospheric pressure dropping in prelude to a storm. Distant thunder rumbled beyond the hills surrounding Reefside. We should head back, Kira suggested, glancing at the darkening sky. Storms hit fast around here this time of year. They had barely reached her car when the first heavy raindrops began to fall. Within seconds, the gentle shower transformed into a torrential downpour. They scrambled inside, laughing as they slammed the doors against the sudden deluge. So much for a casual walk back, Kira said, brushing water from her hair. Naruto grinned, completely unbothered by the sudden soaking. Water release jutsu are my weakest element, but even I could have blocked that rain with a basic technique. Show off, she teased, starting the engine. Some of us have to rely on umbrellas and weather reports. The windshield wipers worked frantically against the downpour as they navigated through increasingly flooded streets. Visibility deteriorated rapidly, transforming familiar roadways into treacherous water hazards. This isn't normal, Kira muttered, leaning forward to peer through the obscured glass. The storms accelerated too quickly. Naruto's expression shifted to alert wariness, sage senses extending outward. You're right, there's chakra, no, Dino energy, in this storm. Artificial manipulation, as if confirming his assessment. A bolt of unnaturally green lightning struck a transformer ahead of them. The resulting explosion sent a cascade of sparks across the roadway. Kira swerved sharply, narrowly avoiding both the electrical discharge and a suddenly appearing sinkhole where the asphalt had collapsed. Definitely not natural, she shouted over the thunderous downpour. Naruto formed a quick hand seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A shadow clone materialized in the backseat. I'll scout ahead. Keep driving, but follow my clone's directions. Without waiting for agreement, he phased his body into partial intangibility, a technique borrowed from the green Dino gem, and stepped directly through the car door into the raging storm. The rain passed through his semi-substantial form as he reoriented himself on the flooded street. Full Sage mode activated instantly, orange markings framing eyes that now scanned the electromagnetic spectrum beyond normal vision. The storm's energy pattern became immediately apparent. A spiral configuration with its epicenter 2 miles northwest, directly above Reefside High School. Naruto dashed through the deluge at shinobi speed, covering ground with inhuman velocity despite the challenging conditions. Water exploded beneath his sandaled feet as he leapt across submerged sections of road, redirecting his path when necessary to avoid downed power lines and flooding hazards. He arrived at the school campus to find a nightmarish scene unfolding. A swirling vortex of green-tinged clouds centered precisely above the athletic field where he taught daily classes. Beneath this unnatural storm, a figure stood with arms outstretched, channeling energy upward in pulsing waves. The being resembled neither human nor dinosaur, but a disturbing hybrid of both. Pale, almost translucent skin stretched over an elongated frame. White hair whipped wildly around horned protrusions on a face that featured reptilian eyes with vertical pupils. Most disturbing were the hands, human eye, N-shaped but with elongated fingers ending in curved talons that crackled with the same green energy feeding the storm. Otsutsuki, Kurama growled within Naruto's mind. But corrupted by something indigenous to this dimension. Mesogog's energy signature, Naruto muttered, recognizing the distinctive frequency Tommy had briefed him about. A fusion. The creature's head snapped toward him, supernatural senses detecting his presence despite the chaotic conditions. Its lips curled back in a smile that revealed rows of needle-like teeth. The dimensional anomaly graces us with his presence, it spoke. Voice layered with dual tones, one coldly aristocratic, the other a reptilian hiss. We sensed your chakra experiments, Uzumaki Naruto. How convenient that you've delivered yourself to us. Naruto maintained a cautious distance, analyzing potential attack vectors while gathering natural energy. You have me at a disadvantage. You know my name, but I don't know what to call this interesting combination of entities. Quote, the creature's chest expanded with pride. Two superior beings merged into transcendent perfection. Momoshiki of the Otsutsuki clan and Mesogog, Lord of Dinos. Our evolution. Now unified as Momoshiki Mesogog, harbinger of dimensional consumption. That's quite a title, Naruto replied, stalling for time as he sensed Kira's car approaching. Though, transcendent perfection, seems a bit aspirational given the scales and bad dental situation. Rage flashed across the hybrid's features. Your flippancy masks fear, human. We have observed your experiments with the Dino gems, primitive attempts to stabilize your foreign chakra in this reality. If you've been watching, Naruto countered, then you know those primitive attempts have been pretty successful. Want a demonstration? Without waiting for a response, he channeled Sage Chakra into a Rasengan formation, but with a modification. Drawing upon the harmonization techniques he'd practiced earlier, he infused the swirling sphere with green Dino gem energy. The resulting technique glowed with emerald luminescence, emitting a high-pitched whine as it stabilized in his palm. Sage Art. Dino Rasengan, he declared. The improvised name coming naturally. Momoshiki Mesogog's eyes widened fractionally, not in fear, but covetous fascination. Yes, exactly what we suspected. Your chakra network provides the perfect interface between dimensions, between energy types that should be incompatible. Glad you approve, Naruto replied dryly. Now how about shutting down this storm before people get hurt? The storm serves its purpose, drawing you out while simultaneously harvesting fear energy from the humans. The creature gestured upward, every lightning strike, every flash flood feeding our evolution. The vortex above intensified, drawing power from the surrounding electrical grid. Across Reefside, lights flickered and died as the creature siphoned energy into its unnatural weather system. Naruto assessed his options rapidly. Direct confrontation seemed inevitable, but civilian protection remained priority. A glance at his chakra reserves showed adequate capacity for multiple high-level techniques. Though the dimensional differences still imposed limitations on his maximum output. Last chance to deactivate this willingly, he offered, knowing the diplomatic approach was futile but necessary to establish moral positioning. Momoshiki Mesogog responded with a gesture that sent a concentrated lightning bolt directly at Naruto's position. He dodged with practiced ease, the electrical discharge obliterating the section of pavement where he'd stood moments before. I'll take that as a no, Naruto muttered, then launched into action. He hurled the Dino Rasengan as a diversionary tactic, then formed a rapid sequence of hand seals. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 5 shadow clones materialized, immediately spreading out to surround the creature. Momoshiki Mesogog Destro. Yet the incoming Rasengan with a casual swipe of taloned fingers, dispersing its energy harmlessly. Primitive application. You've barely scratched the surface of what's possible with combined powers. The creature moved with disturbing speed, covering ground faster than an ordinary human could track. It targeted Naruto's clones systematically, each strike revealing combat capabilities beyond standard Tyrannodrome threats. This was an opponent of cage-level abilities. Naruto used the clone distractions to analyze his enemy's movement patterns and energy signature. The fusion being possessed immense power but showed signs of instability, fluctuations in its chakra network where the two entities hadn't fully integrated. A familiar yellow car screeched to a halt at the campus perimeter. Kira emerged, already holding her Dino Thunder morpher. Dino Thunder, power up, she called, initiating her transformation sequence. Yellow energy enveloped her, materializing the distinctive armor of the Yellow Ranger. Get away from my school, you creep. Momoshiki Mesogogue turned toward the new threat, eyes narrowing with calculation. The Gem Bearer. Your participation completes our collection requirements. Collection. Naruto called, attempting to redirect attention. Is that what this light show is about? You're collecting energy signatures. Every dimension requires a key, the creature replied cryptically. Every barrier its unique dissolution pattern. Understanding dawned in Naruto's mind. You're mapping energy frequencies to create interdimensional breaches. The shinobi comprehends. Momoshiki Mesogogue's voice carried mocking approval. Though your understanding is necessarily incomplete. Kira charged forward, her Terra grips materializing in her hands. She engaged the creature directly, her enhanced ranger abilities allowing her to match its speed temporarily. Yellow energy trailed from her weapons as she executed a complex attack sequence, forcing Momoshiki Mesogogue into defensive maneuvers. Your harmonics are particularly useful, the creature commented, almost conversationally, while evading her strikes. Sound-based energy transfers interdimensionally with minimal degradation. Less talking, more getting your scaly butt kicked. Kira retorted, channeling sonic energy through her weapons. Naruto recognized the opportunity their synchronized attack presented. While Kira occupied the creature's attention, he began gathering massive amounts of natural energy, pushing his Sage mode to its upper limits in this dimension. The storm overhead responded to his energy gathering. The vortex pattern destabilizing as natural forces reasserted themselves against artificial manipulation. Momoshiki Mesogogue noticed the interference, hissing with frustration. Enough diversions. The creature's hands formed unfamiliar seals, a disturbing hybrid of Otsutsuki techniques and Mesogogue's genetic manipulation abilities. Dimensional void technique. Gravity well. Space warped around Kira, an invisible force suddenly multiplying gravity's pull in her immediate vicinity. Her Yellow Ranger armor cracked under the immense pressure as she was driven to her knees, concrete fracturing beneath her. Kira, Naruto shouted, abandoning his energy gathering to rush toward her. Predictable, Momoshiki Mesogogue commented smugly. Emotional attachments, the eternal weakness of lesser beings. The creature's prediction proved premature. Instead of charging directly into the gravity well, Naruto used one of his remaining clones as a springboard, launching himself above the distorted space. From this elevated position, he unleashed a wind release technique. Futon. Rasenshuriken. The spinning blade of wind chakra descended toward Momoshiki Mesogogue with devastating potential. The creature's eyes widened with genuine concern, recognizing the technique's cellular destruction capabilities. At the last possible moment, it abandoned the gravity technique, freeing Kira while focusing all its power into a dimensional barrier. The Rasenshuriken collided with this shield, creating a catastrophic release of energy that illuminated the entire campus with blinding light. When visibility returned, a smoking crater marked where Momoshiki Mesogogue had stood. But Naruto's sage senses detected no remains, only the fading signature of a dimensional retreat technique. It escaped, he reported grimly, helping Kira to her feet. Her ranger transformation had disengaged from the strain, leaving her in civilian form again. Are you all right? She nodded, wincing slightly. Nothing permanently damaged except my pride. That gravity trick was nasty. Above them, the unnatural storm began dissipating, returning to normal weather patterns as its controlling influence disappeared. Rain continued falling, but with decreasing intensity. What was that thing? Kira asked, staring at the crater. It felt like a Mesogogue situation, but different. Stronger. A fusion entity, Naruto explained. Momoshiki, an Otsutsuki from my dimension, somehow merged with your Mesogogue. The combination creates a being with intimate knowledge of both dimensional energy systems. And it's collecting energy signatures for some kind of interdimensional master plan, she concluded. That's never good. Naruto helped her toward the school building's relative shelter, both soaking wet from the continuing rain. At least we know what we're dealing with now. The energy signatures we've been detecting weren't random anomalies, they were test runs for whatever Momoshiki Mesogogue is planning. As they reached the covered walkway, a flash of movement caught Naruto's attention. His hand shot out reflexively, catching a small recording device that had been concealed in the landscaping nearby. We had an audience, he noted, examining the sophisticated equipment. Professional grade, weather resistant. 3 guesses who it belongs to, and the first 2 don't count, Kira sighed. Your persistent reporter friend, Naruto deduced. Cassidy Cornell. She has an uncanny knack for being exactly where trouble happens. Kira took the device, examining it with resignation. This complicates things. If she captured footage of Momoshiki Mesogogue, let alone you using jutsu or me transforming. We should find her before she publishes anything that could cause panic, Naruto suggested. Or attract more attention from our fusion friend. They made their way to Naruto's faculty apartment on campus, one of the few buildings still with power thanks to backup generators. After changing into dry clothes, Naruto lending Kira a spare t-shirt and sweatpants that dwarfed her smaller frame, they contacted Tommy with an update on the situation. Momoshiki Mesogogue, Tommy repeated the name with grave concern. This confirms our worst fears about interdimensional contamination. If Mesogogue's consciousness survived his destruction by merging with this Otsutsuki entity, it creates a threat with unprecedented knowledge of both worlds' power systems, Haley's voice added from the background. I'm running analysis on the energy signatures from the storm. The pattern, NS suggests experimental probing rather than full-scale attack. Reconnaissance, Naruto agreed. It's studying how different energy types interact in this dimension, particularly focusing on Kira's sonic abilities and my chakra harmonization with the gems. Which means we accidentally gave it valuable data during our battle, Kira realized with dismay. Don't blame yourself, Tommy reassured her. We needed this confrontation to understand what we're facing. Naruto, did you sense any weaknesses in the fusion? Instability at the merge points, Naruto reported. The 2 consciousness are NT fully integrated, they're cooperating but occasionally working at cross purposes. When it used the gravity technique, I detected fluctuations in its chakra control. That gives us something to exploit, Haley noted. If we could force the 2 entities to conflict internally. We're getting ahead of ourselves, Kira interrupted. We have a more immediate problem. Cassidy Cornell had recording equipment hidden at the scene. She might have footage of everything. Tommy's sigh was audible through the phone. I'll contact Ethan. He can run interference on any digital uploads she might attempt. In the meantime, you 2 should track her down directly. After ending the call, Naruto and Kira debated their approach. Standard procedure would involve confiscating any evidence and ensuring silence through official channels. But Naruto suggested an alternative strategy. What if we don't try to silence her? He proposed. What if we give her an exclusive interview instead? Kira looked at him like he'd suggested setting the school on fire. Have you lost your mind? Cassidy Cornell is a human megaphone with journalistic ambitions bigger than New York. Exactly, Naruto nodded. Hitch means she values her credibility and professional reputation. If we offer her insider access with conditions, she gets career advancement while we gain some control over the narrative. That's, Kira began skeptically, then reconsidered. Actually not the worst idea. Cassidy's ambitious but not reckless. If she believes she's got exclusive ongoing access to the biggest story of her career, she might agree to publish only what we approve. Worth trying before we resort to ninja stealth missions to steal her equipment, Naruto grinned. They located Cassidy's contact information through the school directory. She occasionally guest lectured in journalism classes, and arranged to meet at a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. Remote enough for privacy, public enough for her comfort when meeting potential story subjects. Cassidy arrived precisely on time, professional portfolio in hand, blonde hair immaculately styled despite the lingering rain. Her expression conveyed calculated neutrality masking intense curiosity. She slid into the booth across from them, immediately taking control of the interaction. Before we begin, she stated crisply, I should inform you that I have multiple secure backups of all footage and recordings. Any attempt to confiscate or delete my materials would be futile and legally actionable. Naruto smiled, genuinely impressed by her preparedness. We're not here to threaten or intimidate you, Ms. Cornell. Cassidy, she corrected automatically. And forgive my skepticism, but when a mysterious super-powered individual who creates duplicates of himself and a former Power Ranger arrange a midnight meeting, please delete that footage, is the usual opening line. Kira nearly choked on her coffee. Former Ranger, I don't know what you're talking about. Cassidy rolled her eyes. Please. Yellow uniform, sonic powers, hanging out with Dr. Oliver. I've suspected for years. Tonight just confirmed it. She turned to Naruto. You, however, are a new variable. My working theory involves either alien origin or government super soldier program. Your technique names sound Japanese, but no known martial arts can duplicate people or create energy tornadoes. Naruto exchanged a glance with Kira, whose expression had transitioned from shock to resignation. Your observational skills are impressive, he acknowledged. I'm neither alien nor government experiment, though. My situation is more interdimensional. Interdimensional, Cassidy repeated, pulling out a digital recorder. May I? Naruto nodded permission for the recording. We're proposing a simple, exclusive access and information in exchange for editorial oversight on what gets published. Cassidy's eyebrows rose. You want censorship rights. We want public safety considerations, Kira corrected. What you saw tonight was a being called Momoshiki Mesogogue, a fusion entity with destructive capabilities beyond anything Reefside has faced before. Publishing unfiltered information could cause panic, Naruto added. Or worse, attract attention from government agencies that would complicate our ability to handle the threat. Cassidy considered this, tapping manicured nails against her portfolio. You're asking me to withhold information from the public. That's fundamentally opposed to journalistic ethics. We're asking you to be strategic about how and when information is released. Naruto clarified. You'd have the complete story, the real story, not government cover-ups or conspiracy theories. When the situation is resolved, you publish everything with exclusive interviews from all involved. The story of a lifetime, Kira added, recognizing Cassidy's ambition. Pulitzer-level exclusive on interdimensional threats and the people who fight them. A calculating look entered Cassidy's eyes. I'd need verifiable evidence to substantiate any claims before publication, which we can provide under controlled conditions, Naruto agreed. Including demonstrations of abilities and technical explanations from our scientific team. And what guarantees do I have that you won't simply take my research once the threat is neutralized? My word, Naruto stated simply. Where I come from, that's binding beyond any legal document. Something in his direct gaze must have conveyed sincerity, because Cassidy's expression softened fractionally. I'll need to establish parameters. Regular updates, access to non-sensitive planning sessions, interview rights with all team members including your technical support staff. Within reason, Kira qualified. Some information will remain classified until the threat is contained. And you acknowledge Drive Oliver's authority as security lead for sensitive information, Naruto added. Cassidy took a sip of her water. Considering the proposal, I'll agree on one additional condition. I want field observer status. Not direct combat involvement, but proximity access to document events as they unfold. That's potentially dangerous, Naruto cautioned. So is being a journalist in war zones, but we do it because the truth matters, she countered. I can maintain safe distance while still documenting accurately. After further negotiation, they established preliminary terms. Cassidy would receive regular briefings, limited access to non-critical operations, and field observation opportunities with appropriate safety measures. In exchange, she would submit all materials for security review before publication and adhere to embargo restrictions on sensitive tactical information. As they prepared to leave, Cassidy fixed Naruto with a penetrating look. One question before we formalize this arrangement. Why me? Why not go with the standard government cover-up approach that's worked for the Rangers for years? Naruto considered her thoughtfully. Because deception only works temporarily. Because people deserve truth delivered responsibly. And because I recognized something in you that reminds me of people I respect, persistence in pursuit of truth, regardless of obstacles. A faint blush colored Cassidy's cheeks before her professional composure reasserted itself. Flattery won't get you editorial control, Mr. Uzumaki. Naruto, he corrected with a smile. And it wasn't flattery, just observation. They parted with a tentative alliance established, Cassidy heading to her apartment to organize materials while Naruto and Kira returned to Tommy's lab to update the team. You did what? Tommy's expression reflected disbelief when they explained their arrangement with Cassidy. Bringing a civilian journalist into our operation creates exponential security risks. It also gives us narrative control, Naruto countered calmly. Better to have her working with cons. Trains she's agreed to than working against us with partial information and speculation. Haley looked up from her computer station. He's not wrong, Tommy. Cassidy's been circling our operation for years. This way we channel her energy constructively rather than fighting constant information leaks. Besides, Kira added, she'd already identified me as a former ranger. The secrecy ship has sailed. Tommy sighed heavily, rubbing his temple. I hope you know what you're doing. The last thing we need during an interdimensional crisis is managing press relations. Speaking of the crisis, Ino interjected. Having arrived during their explanation, I've been analyzing the energy patterns from tonight's encounter. The signature contains traces of both Otsutsuki chakra and what you call Dino energy. But they're oscillating at different frequencies, competing rather than harmonizing. Like oil and water, Naruto observed, recalling his earlier analogy. Temporarily mixed but naturally separating. Precisely, Ino nodded, which suggests the fusion is inherently unstable. Given enough time or stress, the two entities might divide naturally. Or they might fully integrate and become permanently unified. Haley countered. The oscillation could be a temporary phase in a merger process. Either way, we need better defensive capabilities, Tommy concluded. Naruto, how close are you to stabilizing multiple gem connections simultaneously? Before Naruto could answer, the lab's perimeter alarm activated. Security camera feeds showed a familiar figure approaching the concealed entrance, Principal Randall. That's unexpected, Tommy muttered, quickly shutting down sensitive displays. Elsa rarely makes social calls. Principal Randall is Elsa, Naruto questioned, confused by the name discrepancy. Former villain, now reformed, Kira explained quickly. It's complicated. Tommy activated the exterior intercom. Elsa, everything all right? We need to talk. Drive. Oliver, her voice replied. Tension evident even through the audio system. About your new physical education teacher and the energy anomalies affecting my school. Tommy sighed, pressing the entrance release. Some days I miss when secret identities actually stayed secret. Elsa Randall descended the stairs with dignified precision, her formal business attire incongruous in the high-tech underground facility. Her sharp eyes catalogued everyone present, lingering longest on Naruto. When I agreed to hire Mr. Uzumaki based on your recommendation, she addressed Tommy without preamble, you neggle. Acted to mention he came from another dimension and would be engaging in energy battles on school property. You know, Naruto stated rather than asked, studying the formidable woman with newfound interest. I was Mesogog's right hand before my reformation, she replied coolly. I recognize dimensional disturbance patterns. And I make it my business to know everything that happens at my school. Then you're aware of our fusion problem, Tommy said. Momoshiki Mesogog, Elsa nodded. I sensed the combined energy signature during tonight's storm. A concerning development that brings me to my purpose here. I'm activating the school's underground bunker system. Reefside High has bunkers, Kira asked incredulously. Installed after the last 3 monster-related school destructions, Elsa explained with dry practicality. Insurance companies have unusual requirements for institutions built on apparent monster magnets. Smart precaution, Naruto acknowledged. The school appears to be a focal point for dimensional thinning, possibly due to residual energy from previous ranger activities. Precisely, Elsa agreed, which is why I'm offering it as an operations center for your team. The bunkers include laboratory facilities designed specifically for Dino gem research. They're more extensive than this basement setup and hardened against energy fluctuations. Tommy looked surprised by the offer. That's unexpectedly generous, Elsa. It's practical, she corrected. Containing this situation quickly minimizes structural damage to my campus. And unlike some, I learn F.ROM experience. Keeping powered individuals nearby rather than at arm's length provides better oversight. Haley was already calculating the logistics. Moving our equipment would take approximately 12 hours with proper transportation. Quote, I can expedite the process, Naruto offered. Shadow clones make excellent movers. Then it's settled, Elsa concluded. Dr. Oliver, I'll expect a full briefing tomorrow morning regarding containment strategies for this Momoshiki Mesogogue entity. Mr. Uzumaki, while I appreciate your classroom effectiveness, perhaps focus on not attracting interdimension threats to school property in the future. Her deadpan delivery contained just enough humor to soften the criticism. I'll do my best, Principal Randall, Naruto promised with equal seriousness. After Elsa departed, the team began organizing for the facility transfer. Haley and Ethan handled digital systems while Tommy categorized physical equipment. Ino and Kira started packing research materials and medical supplies. Naruto stepped away briefly, moving to a quiet corner of the lab to center himself. The confrontation with Momoshiki Mesogogue had confirmed his suspicions. The dimensional breach wasn't an accident but part of a calculated strategy. The Otsutsuki had always sought to harvest chakra across dimensions. Now they had access to an entirely new energy source in the Dino gems. You're worried about home, Kurama observed within his mindscape. If Momoshiki can travel between dimensions, others might follow, Naruto confirmed. Our world is already fighting one Otsutsuki invasion. They can't handle a second front. Then we must prevent further breaches from this side, the fox reasoned. These gems may provide the key, not just to returning home, but to sealing the dimensional pathways. Which means mastering all 5 simultaneously, Naruto concluded grimly. Despite the risks, he rejoined the others, helping coordinate the Shadow Clone moving team with quiet efficiency. As preparations continued into the early morning hours, Naruto made a decision he had been avoiding. I need to try synchronizing with all 5 gems at once, he announced during a brief break. Not just individually, but true harmonic integration. Tommy looked concerned. You said yourself the informational overload was overwhelming. It was, Naruto acknowledged. But I've been approaching it wrong, trying to process everything instead of filtering selectively. Sage mode already requires balancing multiple energy sources simultaneously. This is just an extension of that principle. The risk of chakra network damage, Ino began, is less important than stopping Momoshiki Mesogogue from creating interdimensional breaches, Naruto finished firmly. He's gathering power for something big. We need to be prepared with equal capability. After substantial debate, they agreed to attempt a controlled full synchronization the following evening, after completing the move to the school's bunker facility. Basic safety protocols would include Ino maintaining a mental link to pull Naruto out if the strain became dangerous, while Haley monitored his vital signs for critical thresholds. Dawn arrived with exhausted but determined team members finalizing relocation plans. Naruto created 30 shadow clones to assist with moving equipment, their coordinated efficiency reducing what should have been days of work into hours. As the others departed with the first transport vehicles, Kira lingered behind, concern evident in her expression. You're taking an unnecessary risk, she said directly once they were alone. There must be alternatives to full gem synchronization. Naruto leaned against a partially dismantled console. Would you have chosen a path when you were a ranger if it meant potentially failing the mission? Her silence answered for her. That's what I thought, he continued gently. Some risks are necessary because the alternatives are worse. She struggled momentarily with words, then settled on, be careful. We need you functional, not fried by gem overload. He recognized the genuine concern beneath her practical framing. I appreciate the worry, but I've survived worse odds. Ask me sometime about the Pain Invasion or the Fourth Shinobi War. As they prepared to leave, Naruto glanced around the lab that had been his first anchor in this strange new world. 3 weeks felt simultaneously like moments and lifetimes, a paradox familiar to anyone who had experienced the time dilation effect of intense combat and training. "You're adapting remarkably well," Kira observed, reading his expression. "Most people would be complete wrecks after being dumped in another dimension." Naruto shrugged, a small smile playing at his lips. "Adapting to impossible situations is kind of my specialty. Besides, this world has its advantages." "Like what?" "Indoor plumbing is consistently better than in Konoha," he replied with mock seriousness. "And the music is excellent." She rolled her eyes, but couldn't suppress a smile. "Come on, Dino Sage. We've got work to do." The name caught his attention. "Dino Sage, that's what the students are calling you," Kira explained as they headed toward the stairs. "After yesterday's gym class when you demonstrated that ridiculous vertical jump. The nickname's ALR. Spreading through school social media. Dino Sage," he repeated thoughtfully. "I like it. Connects both worlds rather nicely." By mid-afternoon, the transfer to Reefside High's underground facility was complete. Naruto was genuinely impressed by the installation, significantly larger than Tommy's basement lab, with specialized research areas, medical facilities, and even living quarters for emergency situations. Principal Randall didn't skimp on the renovations, Kira noted as they toured the complex. "This makes our old command center look like a hobby setup." "The woman is nothing if not thorough," Tommy agreed. "Directing equipment placement with practiced efficiency. Though I'm still adjusting to having her as an ally rather than adversary." Haley had already integrated her systems with the bunker's infrastructure, creating an enhanced monitoring network with coverage extending throughout Reefside. "The facility includes geothermal power with electromagnetic shielding. We could sustain operations even during complete grid failure." As evening approached, the team prepared for Naruto's synchronized gem attempt. The bunker's central chamber featured a reinforced testing area specifically designed for high-energy experiments, another example of Elsa's forward thinking. Naruto sat cross-legged in the chamber's center, 5 Dino gems arranged in a circle around him. Monitoring equipment hummed softly as Haley calibrated final settings, while Ino prepared her mind transfer technique as an emergency extraction mechanism. "Remember the withdrawal sequence if things go wrong," Tommy instructed. Professional concern evident. Green, yellow, red, blue, black, in that specific order to minimize energy backlash. Naruto nodded, his expression serene despite the tension in the room. "I'll maintain awareness of the extraction protocols, but I don't anticipate needing them. This time I'm approaching harmony rather than dominance." Kira stood at the observation window, arms crossed in what appeared to be casual posture but betrayed underlying worry in the tension of her shoulders. Beside her, surprisingly, stood Cassidy Cornell, her first official observation opportunity under their new arrangement. Beginning synchronization in 3, 2, 1. Haley counted down from the control station. Naruto closed his eyes, entering sage mode with practiced ease. Orange pigmentation formed around his eyes as nature energy flowed into his chakra network. Unlike previous attempts, he didn't reach for the gems immediately. Instead, he created a receptive field of sage chakra around himself. Inviting rather than commanding. Minutes passed in silence. The gems remained inert, showing no response to his passive approach. "Nothing's happening," Cassidy whispered to Kira. "Is that normal?" Before Kira could respond, Naruto's eyes opened, revealing not just the standard sage markings, but a faint rainbow iridescence in his normally blue irises. "I understand now," he said softly. "They're waiting for the right frequency." His hands formed an unfamiliar seal, not one from standard ninjutsu, but a hybrid creation that somehow incorporated elements of ranger transformation gestures. Sage art. Harmonic convergence. The gems responded instantly, rising from their positions and beginning to orbit around Naruto. Each stone pulsed with its characteristic color, green, yellow, red, blue, black, the rhythm gradually synchronizing until they moved as a single system. Energy flowed from the gems in luminous streams, not forcing entry into Naruto's raw network but merging naturally with his sage energy field. The colors didn't remain separate but blended into a pearlescent white light that surrounded his form like a second skin. "Remarkable," Haley breathed, checking readings. "Complete harmonic resonance across all 5 frequency patterns. His chakra is acting as a unifying medium." Within the testing chamber, Naruto remained perfectly still, eyes open but seeing beyond physical space. His consciousness expanded exponentially, perceiving not just the immediate surroundings but the entire dimensional framework supporting reality itself. "I can see it," he whispered, voice carrying an ethereal quality. "The dimensional barriers, the thinning points, the natural pathways between worlds." Ino, maintaining her mental monitoring link, gasped softly. "His consciousness is operating on multiple planes simultaneously. I can barely maintain connection." "Is he in danger?" Tommy asked sharply. She shook her head. "Not danger, transcendence. His mind is processing information at an unprecedented rate without strain. It's as though the gems are acting as buffer processors, filtering and organizing the dimensional data." Inside Naruto's mindscape, Kurama observed with fascination as reality frameworks became visible, intricate lattices of energy connecting dimensions like an infinite cosmic web. "This is beyond what even the Sage of Six Paths glimpsed," the fox commented. "The architectural structure of the multiverse itself. And I can see where Momoshiki Mezagogue is creating distortions," Naruto replied within their shared consciousness. 3 primary weakening points around Reefside, with the school at the center triangle. He extended his awareness further, tracing energy pathways back toward his home dimension. There, a faint but unmistakable connection, like a golden thread stretching across infinite space. Along this thread, he sensed familiar chakra signatures: Hinata, actively searching with her Byakugan, Sasuke, using his Rinnegan to probe dimensional boundaries, Sakura and Tsunade, maintaining a medical stasis field for something he couldn't quite perceive. With gentle focus, Naruto sent a pulse of his distinctive chakra along this connection, a beacon, a message, a promise: "I am here. I am alive. I am coming home." In the monitoring station, alarms suddenly blared as energy readings spiked dramatically. "What's happening?" Kira demanded, moving toward the chamber entrance. "He's transmitting," Haley replied, fingers flying across controls. "Sending energy across dimensional boundaries." "Is that dangerous?" Cassidy asked, recording device forgotten in her hand as she stared at the luminous figure in the testing chamber. "Theoretically impossible," Tommy corrected. "Yet he's doing it anyway." After several tense minutes, the energy surge subsided. The gems gradually ceased their orbital pattern, gently returning to their original positions as the pearlescent glow around Naruto faded. The sage markings remained around his eyes, but the rainbow iridescence diminished to subtle flecks of color. When he finally moved, it was with deliberate care, like someone adjusting G to gravity after extended weightlessness. His expression combined wonder, exhaustion, and something else: hope. "I found them," he said simply as the team entered the chamber. "I found the connection to home." "You established contact?" Ino asked urgently, professional composure momentarily abandoned. "With Konoha." Naruto nodded, accepting Kira's steadying hand as he rose to his feet. "Not direct communication, but I sent a chakra pulse along the connection thread. If Hinata's watching with her Byakugan, she'll have seen it." The energy expenditure was enormous, Haley noted, reviewing data scrolling across her tablet. "But remarkably controlled. Your chakra network shows no signs of strain or damage." "Because I wasn't fighting the process," Naruto explained. "The gems weren't separate tools but aspects of a unified system. Once I understood that, everything aligned naturally." Tommy examined the gems, which now displayed subtle changes in their crystalline structure, irides. Scent patterns that hadn't been present before. "You've fundamentally altered their composition." "Not altered," Naruto corrected gently. "Awakened. They've always had this potential for unified function. But no previous bearer could access all 5 simultaneously without fragmenting the connection." "And Momoshiki Mezagogue?" Kira asked. "Did you learn anything about its plans?" Naruto's expression darkened. "It's creating a triangular array of dimensional thinning points around Reefside. When fully activated, it won't just open a doorway between our worlds, it will collapse the dimensional barriers entirely, allowing the Otsutsuki clan unrestricted access to harvest both chakra and Dino energy." "That would be catastrophic for both dimensions," Tommy concluded grimly. "Worse than you imagine," Naruto confirmed. "The dimensional collapse would create a cascading failure affecting multiple realities beyond just our 2 worlds." Cassidy, who had remained uncharacteristically silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke. So we're talking potential apocalypse-level threat. Multiple worlds at risk. Yes, Naruto answered simply. But we also have something we didn't have before. What's that? She asked. A slow smile spread across his features, combining determination with genuine confidence. A counter-strategy. I saw exactly how Momoshiki Mezagogue is manipulating the dime. N-sional fabric, which means I can reverse it. You can create a sealing technique that works across dimensions. Ino asked, professional excitement evident in her voice. Better, Naruto replied. I can create a Dino Sage mode that harmonizes all 5 gems simultaneously, allowing precise manipulation of the dimensional boundaries themselves. He looked around at the assembled team, his expression reflecting the gravity of their situation while maintaining the unwavering determination that had defined him throughout his life. Momoshiki Mezagogue wants to use dimensional energy as a weapon, he stated firmly. We're going to use it as a shield, not just for Reefside or Earth, but for all connected dimensions. Tommy nodded, recognizing the resolution of a leader who had found his path forward. Then we'd better get to work. If what you saw is accurate, we don't have much time before the triangle activation sequence completes. As the team dispersed to begin implementing Naruto's insights, Cassidy approached him with newfound respect in her expression. That was not what I expected, she admitted. When I agreed to document this situation, I thought I was covering a local monster threat with interdimensional flavor. This is significantly more substantial. Having second thoughts about your involvement? Naruto asked. She straightened, professional determination replacing momentary uncertainty. Absolutely not. If anything, this confirms I'm exactly where I need to be. The public deserves accurate reporting on threats of this magnitude, even if publication comes after resolution. Good, Naruto replied with genuine approval. Because we could use your investigative skills to track energy signature patterns around the city. Your perspective as someone without words might reveal aspects we're overlooking. The simple acknowledgement of her potential value visibly affected Cassidy, though she maintained professional composure. I'll coordinate with Haley to establish detection parameters for my field observations. As she walked away, Kira gave Naruto an impressed look. You just turned our potential security leak into an enthusiastic team member with 2 sentences. People want to contribute meaningfully, he replied simply. Sometimes they just need someone to recognize their specific value. Is that how you build loyalty in your world? Seeing people's unique potential. Naruto considered this, watching the bustling activity around them as the team prepared for what might be their most significant challenge. Not intentionally. I just care about people. See them as they are and as they could be. The rest happens naturally. Kira studied him with newfound appreciation. The students who nicknamed you Dino Sage had no idea how appropriate it would become. Speaking of which, he responded with a mischievous glint in his eyes, I think it's time we make it official. What do you mean? If I'm going to fully embody the Dino Sage Ranger concept, Naruto explained, I should probably have proper Ranger equipment to complement my shinobi abilities. Understanding dawned in Kira's expression, followed by genuine excitement. You want Haley to design you a morpher. A specialized one, Naruto confirmed. Something that can channel all 5 gem energies simultaneously through my chakra network. The ultimate integration of both worlds' power systems. Tommy will have opinions about this, she warned, though her tone suggested she fully supported the idea. I'm counting on it, Naruto replied with a confident smile. His experience combined with Haley's technical genius, Ino's chakra knowledge, and what I learned during synchronization, together we can create something unprecedented. As they rejoined the others to share this new development, Naruto felt a strange sense of purpose taking root alongside his determination to return home. This world had welcomed him, trusted him, integrated him into their defense against threats they barely comprehended. Whatever happened in the coming conflict with Momoshiki Mezagogue, he would ensure that both dimensions emerged stronger for their connection. The Dino Sage Ranger was no longer just a student nickname or theoretical concept, it was becoming his legacy across worlds. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Familiar Faces in Strange Places. Moonlight spilled acres, the rooftop garden where Naruto sat cross-legged in perfect stillness. Silver illumination bathed his features, accentuating the whisker-like markings that betrayed his otherworldly origin. Around him, carefully arranged in a pentagonal formation, 5 Dino gems pulsed with rhythmic luminescence, synchronized to his heartbeat. 3 days had passed since his successful harmonization with all 5 gems. 3 days of intense training, refining his control over their combined energy. 3 days of testing the boundaries between shinobi techniques and ranger powers. Still awake at this hour, Ino's voice drifted from the rooftop access door. Even for you, 4 consecutive nights of training seems excessive. She moved with fluid grace across the garden terrace, her platinum blonde hair appearing almost white under the moon's glow. Unlike their days in Konoha, she wore it loose now, cascading past her shoulders in a style better suited to her cover identity as Dr. Ino Yamanaka, cognitive behavioral therapist. I could say the same about your midnight wanderings, Naruto replied without opening his eyes or disrupting his meditation. Your appointment calendar shows clients starting at 7 tomorrow morning. A soft laugh escaped her as she settled onto a stone bench nearby. 6 months in this dimension has taught me to function on minimal sleep. Different world, same shinobi habits. The gems pulsed once more before Naruto released his concentration, allowing them to settle into their containment case. Orange sage markings faded from around his eyes as he turned toward his old friend and comrade. 6 months, he repeated, shaking his head in wonder. I still can't quite reconcile that time differential. For me, it's been less than a month since the battle with Momoshiki. Dimensional physics is cruel that way, Ino replied, crossing her legs comfortably. Time flows differently between realities, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. When I first arrived, I spent weeks just adjusting to the temporal disorientation. Naruto studied her with newfound appreciation. The Ino before him carried herself with a subtle maturity beyond what he remembered, a woman who had navigated an alien world alone for half a year, establishing a life and purpose while searching for her missing comrade. You've changed, he observed quietly. Her expression softened into mething between amusement and melancholy. Haven't we all? War, peace, interdimensional travel, they leave their marks on us. She gestured to her Western-style clothing, tailored slacks and a silk blue say that retained hints of her signature purple. Some changes are more visible than others. I meant beyond the obvious, Naruto clarified. There's a centeredness to you that wasn't there before. Ino considered this, moonlight playing across her thoughtful features. Isolation creates clarity. Without clan responsibilities or village politics, I've had time to rediscover aspects of myself that got buried under duty and expectation. Like what? Like how much I genuinely enjoy helping people understand their minds, she admitted. My therapy practice isn't just cover, it's become something I value. The Yamanaka techniques were always focused on invasion or defense, rarely healing. Naruto nodded, understanding perfectly. You found freedom in constraints, just as I did as a Jinchuriki. A comfortable silence settled between them, the ease of old friends who didn't need constant conversation to communicate. They sat together beneath the stars of an alien sky, finding familiar comfort in each other's presence. Eventually, Ino spoke again. Are we going to discuss the pink-haired elephant in the room? You mean my harem of interdimensional women? Naruto replied dryly, quote, because that's what the students at Reefside High are apparently calling my living situation. Ino laughed, the sound bright and genuine. Teenagers are the same in every dimension, it seems. But no, I meant your Dino gem experimentation. You've achieved in weeks what Tommy and Haley theorized might take months. Necessity accelerates learning, Naruto replied with a shrug. Momoshiki Mesogogue isn't waiting for us to be ready. That's not the complete answer, and you know it. Ino leaned forward, her gaze penetrating in a way that reminded him of her interrogation training. The gem's respond to you unlike anything the Rangers have witnessed before. There's something you haven't shared with the team. Naruto hesitated, then sighed in resignation. He could never hide things from Ino for long, not just because of her mind techniques, but because she simply knew him too well. The gems aren't just repositories of prehistoric dinosaur energy, he explained quietly. They're conscious in a way similar to the Biju. Not human consciousness, something more primal, elemental. They recognize in me something familiar. The 9 tails, Ino deduced immediately. Kurama, Naruto corrected gently. And yes, his chakra resonates with their energy at a fundamental level. They perceive him as kin, ancient power bound to human form. Tell the Yamanaka girl I find her directness refreshing. Kurama rumbled within Naruto's mindscape. Unlike most humans, she never feared me even when she should have. Kurama says hello, by the way, Naruto relayed with a slight smile. In his own grumpy fashion, Ino's expression brightened. The feeling is mutual, fox spirit. Your partnership with Naruto has always been fascinating from a psychological perspective. Don't start psychoanalyzing him, Naruto warned with mock seriousness. He'll give you nightmares just to prove a point. Their shared laughter echoed across the rooftop garden, momentarily dispelling the weight of interdimensional crises and impending conflicts. For that brief moment, they were simply 2 friends from Konoha, enjoying each other's company beneath an unfamiliar moon. The moment ended with the soft chime of Naruto's communicator, a modified ranger device that Haley had integrated with chakra-responsive technology. Tommy's voice emerged from the device, tense but controlled. Naruto, we're picking up energy fluctuations at the northern observation point. Pattern matches Momoshiki Mesogog's signature from previous encounters. On my way, Naruto replied, already rising to his feet. He glanced at Ino, who nodded in silent understanding. I'll coordinate from the command center, she stated, all traces of casual conversation vanishing beneath professional efficiency. Mental link established. Naruto tapped his temple in confirmation. Constant low-level connection is arranged. If you need to reach me instantly, I'll use the Yamanaka technique, she finished. Be careful, this entity possesses both Otsutsuki and Mesogog intelligence, a dangerous combination. With a final nod, Naruto gathered Sage Chakra, enhancing his already formidable physical capabilities. The pentagonal case of Dino gems secured at his hip, he leapt from the rooftop in a graceful arc that carried him over 3 city blocks before landing. Then he was running, a blur of motion too fast for ordinary human perception. Headed toward whatever new threat awaited. The northern observation point, a sophisticated monitoring station disguised as an electrical substation, stood seemingly undisturbed when Naruto arrived. No visible damage, no obvious signs of intrusion. Yet his sage-enhanced senses detected subtle distortions in the electromagnetic field surrounding the facility. Tommy and Kira were already on scene, both in civilian clothing but with morphers ready. Kira paced with barely contained energy, while Tommy studied readings on a handheld scanner. What are we looking at? Naruto asked without preamble. Quantum fluctuations consistent with dimensional thinning, Tommy replied, showing him the device's display. Not a breach, but a systematic weakening of the barriers between realities. Like erosion, Kira added, gradually wearing away the walls between dimensions instead of punching through directly. Naruto knelt, placing his palm against the ground. With Sage Chakra flowing through his system, he could perceive energy patterns flowing beneath the surface, currents of power being siphoned and redirected in unnatural configurations. It's worse than erosion, he stated grimly. Momoshiki Mesogog is establishing an anchor point, a dimensional constant that remains fixed while reality around it becomes fluid. For what purpose? Tommy questioned. Stability during collapse, Naruto explained. Rising to his feet. When you bring down a building, you need a position from which to control the demolition. This is the same principle on a dimensional scale. Kira's eyes widened with understanding. The triangulation pattern you witnessed during gem synchronization. Naruto nodded. 3 anchor points to stabilize a controlled collapse of the dimensional barriers. This is the first vertex of the triangle. Tommy's expression darkened. We need to disable it before it becomes fully established. Agreed, Naruto replied, already retrieving the pentagonal case from his hip. But we should expect resistance. Momoshiki Mesogog wouldn't leave such a critical installation undefended. As if summoned by his words, the air 50 feet away shimmered with emerald distortion. Space itself seemed to fold inward before tearing open in a vertical slit that pulsed with sickly green light. From this unnatural aperture emerged a dozen tyrannodrones, but unlike previous iterations. These foot soldiers bore distinctive modifications. White, Horn-like protrusions extended from their foreheads, and their eyes glowed with the distinctive lavender hue of Otsutsuki chakra. Hybridized troops, Tommy noted grimly, combining Mesogog's dinosaur DNA with Otsutsuki biological enhancements. Ready? Kira asked, raising her morpher. Tommy nodded, mirroring her stance. Dino Thunder, power up. Twin flashes of energy, one black, one yellow, enveloped them as their ranger transformations activated. When the light faded, they stood battle-ready in their respective armor. Naruto, meanwhile, adopted a different approach. Opening the pentagonal case, he selected 2 gems, green and red, while returning the others to secure containment. Rather than attempting full synchronization, he channeled Sage Chakra specifically through these selected gems, creating a partial but more stable energy fusion. Sage Art. Dual Gem Integration, he announced, his voice resonating with harmonic overtones. Emerald and crimson energy flowed into his chakra network, illuminating pathways beneath his skin with luminous tracery. The sage markings around his eyes took on core, responding hues, right eye rimmed with green, left with red. His standard shinobi attire remained unchanged, but now rippled with subtle energy currents. That's new, Black Ranger Tommy observed with professional interest. Controlled partial integration, Naruto explained, settling into a combat stance. Better stability with multiple gem attributes for extended operations. The hybrid Tyranno, drones charged forward with unsettling coordination, moving not as mindless minions but as tactical units. They separated into 3 distinct formations, a pincer movement designed to flank and isolate their targets. They're displaying strategic thinking, Yellow Ranger Kira noted with concern. That's definitely not standard Tyrannodrone behavior. Otsutsuki influence, Naruto confirmed. Sharing a hive mind combat intelligence. Don't underestimate them. The 3 defenders moved with practiced coordination despite their limited time working together. Tommy engaged the central formation directly, his Black Ranger abilities augmented by decades of martial arts mastery. Kira took the right flank, her Terra grips slicing through the air as she combined attacks with sonic manipulation. Naruto faced the left contingent, immediately demonstrating the effectiveness of his dual gem integration. Phasing through the first attacker's strike, green gem ability, he countered with enhanced stray NGTH that sent the creature flying 30 feet, red gem contribution. Without pausing, he created 3 shadow clones that engaged separate targets simultaneously. The hybrid Tyrannodrones proved significantly more challenging than their standard counterparts. They anticipated maneuvers, adapted to attack patterns, and demonstrated disturbing regenerative capabilities when damaged. They're learning as they fight, Tommy called out, narrowly avoiding a coordinated strike from 3 opponents. Adjusting to our techniques in real time. Then let's give them something new to process, Naruto replied, dismissing his clones to conserve chakra. Kira, sonic convergence pattern. Understanding immediately, Kira channeled her Yellow Ranger powers into a concentrated sonic burst. Simultaneously, Naruto molded Wind Nature chakra into a spiraling vortex, creating an amplification field for her sonic attack. When the 2 techniques merged, the resulting shockwave contained both physical and dimensional properties, disrupting not just the hybrid Tyrannodrone's physical forms but the very dimensional frequencies that supported their modified existence. 4 creatures collapsed immediately, their hybrid components destabilizing into component energy. The remaining troops retreated, regrouping with unexpected tactical discipline. They're reassessing, Tommy observed during the momentary reprieve. Whatever intelligence controls them is adapting its strategy. We need to take out the anchor point while they're regrouping, Naruto stated, already moving toward the substation. Cover me while I disrupt the energy pattern. Quote, as Tommy and Kira engaged the remaining Tyrannodrones, Naruto placed both palms against the central transformer housing. Through sage perception enhanced by gem integration, he could visualize the complex energy matrix that formed the dimensional anchor, a sophisticated lattice of interwoven Otsutsuki chakra and Dino energy, reinforced with quantum binding. Techniques beyond Earth's technological capacity. Clever design, he muttered, analyzing the structure. Redundant systems, self-repairing protocols, dimensional frequency shifting to prevent simple disruption. We've seen similar constructs during the war, Kurama noted within their shared consciousness. Otsutsuki barrier techniques using natural energy as a foundation. Which means they have the same vulnerability. Naruto concluded. Frequency inversion through counter-rotation. Channeling Sage Chakra through both integrated gems, Naruto created a specialized variation of the Rasengan, not as a weapon, but as a harmonic disruptor. The spiraling sphere contained counter-rotating layers, each calibrated to a specific frequency within the anchor's energy pattern. Sage Art. Dimensional harmonic disruption, he declared, pressing the specialized Rasengan directly into the transformer housing. For several tense seconds, nothing appeared to happen. Then, with a sound K crystal shattering at molecular levels, the invisible energy matrix began to collapse. Emerald light leaked from seams in the infrastructure as the anchor point destabilized. The remaining Tyranno drones reacted instantly to the anchor's disruption, abandoning their combat formations and converging on Naruto with single-minded purpose. Their movements became desperate, sacrificial, willing to be destroyed if it meant protecting the installation. Naruto, behind you, Kira shouted, launching herself into an aerial intercept that barely deflected two attackers. Tommy engaged three more, his brachio staff crackling with energy as he created a defensive perimeter around Naruto's position. Whatever you're doing, hurry it up. They're becoming increasingly volatile. Almost there, Naruto replied through gritted teeth, maintaining absolute focus on the disruption technique. The anchor's central node is resisting reconfiguration. As the dimensional matrix approached critical failure, a new distortion appeared in the air above the substation. Unlike the emerald portal that had delivered the Tyrannodrones, this aperture shimmered with pearlescent iridescence, neither fully Otsutsuki nor entirely Mesogog in energy signature. From this opening emerged Momoshiki Mesogog himself, his hybrid form radiating cold fury. Pale, scaled skin stretched over an elongated frame that combined humanoid and reptilian features in disturbing proportion. White hair framed a face dominated by mismatched eyes, one the vertical pupil of Mesogog, the other bearing the distinctive Byakugan of the Otsutsuki clan. Persistent insect, the fusion entity hissed, focusing on Naruto with predatory intensity. Your interference becomes increasingly tiresome. Naruto maintained his concentration on the disruption technique, knowing that abandoning it now would allow the anchor to restabilize. Kira, Tommy, keep him occupied for 30 more seconds. Both rangers immediately engaged the hybrid entity, launching synchronized attacks that demonstrated their years of experience working as a team. Momoshiki Mesogog responded with disturbing efficiency, countering each maneuver with techniques that blended Otsutsuki chakra manipulation with Mesogog's genetic acceleration abilities. Your primitive ranger powers are mere shadows of true dimensional energy, the creature taunted, deflecting Tommy's staff attack while simultaneously neutralizing Kira's sonic burst. Diluted, fragmented echoes of what I now command in unified form. Despite their valiant efforts, the Rangers found themselves matched by the hybrid entity's combined capabilities. Tommy was sent crashing through the substation's perimeter fence, his black armor smoking from some corrosive energy effect. Kira maintained her engagement longer but eventually suffered a devastating counter-strike that deactivated her ranger transformation upon impact. With his defenders temporarily incapacitated, Momoshiki Mesogog turned his full attention to Naruto. I could destroy you now, the fusion entity stated with clinical detachment. But your unique chakra network presents too valuable a research opportunity. You will serve a greater purpose in our evolutionary ascension. Naruto, still maintaining the disruption technique with unwavering focus, managed a defiant smile. You're assuming I'll cooperate with being a research specimen. Bad assumption. Cooperation is unnecessary, Momoshiki Mesogog replied coldly. Only your biological uniqueness matters. The hybrid raised one taloned hand, chakra gathering in concentrated patterns that resembled neither standard Otsutsuki techniques nor Mesogog's mutations, something new, born from their unholy merger. Before the attack could manifest, a voice rang out from darkness beyond the substation perimeter. Mind transfer technique. Sensory overload. Ino's distinctive jutsu struck Momoshiki Mesogog with precise efficiency, targeting not his consciousness foe. Our complete takeover, which would be impossible given his hybrid nature, but specifically overwhelming his sensory processing centers with contradictory input. The fusion entity staggered, momentarily Disoriented as his perception systems received impossible, conflicting information from his own senses. This brief window of vulnerability was all Naruto needed. Now, he shouted, completing the disruption technique with a final surge of combined Sage and Gem energy. The dimensional anchor collapsed completely, releasing a shockwave of displaced power that radiated outward from the substation. Remaining Tyrannodrones disintegrated as their dimensional frequency support vanished. Momoshiki Mesogog roared in frustration, his partially completed attack dissipating harmlessly. This accomplishes nothing, the hybrid snarled, already recovering from Ino's technique. The triangulation pattern can be re-established. The dimensional collapse proceeds regardless of your interference. Maybe, Naruto acknowledged, finally turning to face his opponent directly. But now we understand your methodology better than before. Knowledge is its own weapon. Momoshiki Mesogog's mismatched eyes narrowed with calculated assessment. As is misdirection, your focus on this site has left others vulnerable. Before anyone could respond to this cryptic statement, the hybrid entity teleported away. In a flash of emerald energy, not retreating through a dimensional portal, but simply relocating elsewhere on Earth. What did he mean by that? Kira asked, wincing as she picked herself up from the ground. Naruto's expression darkened with sudden realization. He wanted us here. This entire scenario was designed to focus our attention on this location while something else happens elsewhere. Tommy, having recovered sufficiently to rejoin them, immediately activated his communicator. Haley, emergency sweep of all monitoring stations. Check for simultaneous energy signatures matching Momoshiki Mesogog's pattern. Haley's voice responded instantly, professional despite obvious tension. Already detecting unusual activity at the eastern monitoring post near the harbor. And, something else. A new energy signature just appeared downtown, chakra-based, but not matching Naruto's or Ino's patterns. Ino emerged from the shadows where she had launched her mental attack, her expression reflecting both concern and sudden hope. Another arrival from our dimension. Naruto closed his eyes briefly, extending his sage perception to its maximum range. Through the ambient energy fields of Reefside, he detected a familiar chakra signature, delicate yet powerful, precise in its application, with the unmistakable harmony that belonged to only one person. Hinata, he breathed, eyes snapping open with certainty. She's here. The Hyuga heiress, Ino questioned, though her tone suggested she already suspected this development. Her tracking abilities would make her the logical next searcher. We need to split up. Tommy decided quickly. I'll take Ethan and investigate the harbor situation. Naruto, you and Ino locate your compatriot before Momoshiki Mesogog senses her arrival. What about me? Kira asked, clearly fighting through pain from her earlier impact. You need medical attention, Tommy replied firmly. Return to base and have Haley run diagnostics on your injuries. I'm fine, Kira insisted, straightening despite obvious discomfort, just bruised. Naruto approached her, concern evident in his expression. He's right, Kira, that impact deactivated your raw Inger transformation. That doesn't happen without significant force. I've had worse, she maintained stubbornly. And will have worse again if you don't allow proper recovery between battles, Ino interjected with medical authority. Psychological determination cannot overcome physical trauma indefinitely. Kira looked ready to argue further, but something in Naruto's expression stopped her. His dual-colored sage markings had faded, returning his eyes to their natural blue, eyes now filled with genuine worry. Please, he said simply. We need you at full strength for what's coming. The sincerity in his request accomplished what commands could not. Kira nodded reluctantly. Fine, but keep me updated on Hinata's situation. If she's as disoriented as you were upon arrival, she'll need familiar faces. Count on it, Naruto promised, already retrieving the remaining Dino gems from their container. Ino, you still remember Hinata's chakra signature distinctly enough to trace it? Of course, she confirmed. 6 months in this dimension hasn't diminished my sensory capabilities. As the team separated toward their respective objectives, Naruto felt a complex mixture of emotions surge through him. Concern for whatever Momoshiki Mesogog might be orchestrating at the harbor. Worry for Kira's injuries, which she was clearly downplaying. And beneath it all, an undeniable wave of relief and anticipation at Hinata's arrival, another connection to home, another precious comrade found across impossible distances. You're smiling, Ino observed as they raced across Reefside's rooftops, moving with the silent efficiency of trained shinobi. Am I? Naruto replied, genuinely unaware of his expression. Your bonds with people have always been your greatest strength, she noted. Each connection a thread in the tapestry of your determination. Poetic for someone who used to threaten me with bodily harm on a regular basis, he teased. Ino's laughter drifted behind them as they accelerated toward downtown Reefside, where another piece of home awaited in this strange and increasingly complicated world. The chakra signature led them to Reefside Memorial Park, a sprawling green space near the city center that featured walking paths, recreational facilities, and a small botanical garden. At this late hour, the park stood empty of ordinary visitors, street lamps saws ting pools of yellow light between stretches of shadow. Naruto and Ino approached with caution, suppressing their chakra signatures to avoid broadcasting their presence to potential threats. They ed in standard shinobi reconnaissance formation, using hand signals to coordinate their advance through the darkened landscape. Near the central pavilion, they detected concentrated chakra usage, precise, controlled bursts characteristic of gentle fist techniques. As they drew closer, the distinctive sounds of combat became audible: impact strikes, measured breathing, and the occasional grunt of exertion. They emerged from the tree line to witness Hinata Hyuga engaged in combat with 4 Tyrannodrones, standard versions, not the hybrid abominations from the substation. Despite being outnumbered, she moved with fluid grace through their uncoordinated attacks, her gentle fist strikes systematically disabling their crude chakra systems. 8 trigrams. 32 palms, she announced calmly, her hands becoming virtual blur as she executed the precision technique. The final Tyrannodrone collapsed as they approached, its synthetic nervous system overloaded by her targeted chakra injections. Hinata straightened, smoothing her modified battle attire, a lavender and white ensemble that combined traditional Hyuga styling with practical adaptations for movement and concealment. Naruto-kun, Ino-san. She acknowledged without turning, her activated Byakugan making visual confirmation unnecessary. Your arrival is precisely timed. Hinata, Naruto called, unable to contain his genuine joy at seeing her. When did you? How did you? 3 hours and 27 minutes ago, she answered precisely, deactivating her Byakugan as she turned to face them. Her pale, pupil-less eyes reflected the lamplight as she offered a small but warm smile. Using a modified version of Ino's dimensional transfer technique, calibrated to follow the chakra thread she established during her journey. Ino approached her with professional assessment. Any disorientation, chakra pathway disruption, dimensional travel sickness, minimal effects, Hinata replied with characteristic modesty. My Byakugan allowed me to perceive the dimensional barriers during transfer, reducing the perceptual shock. Though I admit the gravity here feels slightly different, approximately 3% lighter than our world. Naruto marveled at her composed efficiency, so characteristic of Hinata, yet amplified by what appeared to be months of specialized preparation. Gone was any trace of the shy, hesitant girl he had grown up alongside. In her place stood a confident, precisely focused kunoichi who had calculated dimensional transfer variables and immediately adapted to combat upon arrival. You've changed, he observed, unconsciously echoing his earlier words to Ino. Hinata's expression softened slightly. We all have, Naruto-kun. Necessity shapes us in unexpected ways. Her gaze shifted to include Ino. Your disappearance accelerated many developments in Konoha. Interdimensional research became our highest priority. How long has it been there? Naruto asked, suddenly realizing the time differential might apply in both directions. 9 months since the battle with Momoshiki, Hinata answered. Since you vanished through the dimensional rift. Naruto exhaled slowly, processing the implications. 9 months for you, 6 months for Ino, less than 1 month for me. The temporal displacement isn't consistent. Likely due to dimensional resonance patterns, Hinata suggested. Time flows differently along different pathways between worlds. Ino interjected with practical concern. These philosophical discussions would be better continued somewhere secure. Momoshiki Mezagog's forces are active tonight, and your arrival certainly registered on his dimensional sensors. Agreed, Naruto nodded. We should return to the command center. Tommy and Ethan are investigating Activate. Why at the harbor? Potentially a diversion created to draw our attention from your arrival. As they prepared to depart, Hinata's Byakugan activated suddenly. 3 observers, northwestern perimeter, using optical magnification equipment. Civilian or hostile? Naruto asked, immediately alert. Civilian, Hinata confirmed after brief assessment. 1 female, 2 males. The woman appears to be directing the others in documentation procedures. Ino sighed with recognition. Cassidy Cornell and her news team, most likely. She has an uncanny ability to locate incidents. Our embedded journalist, Naruto explained for Hinata's benefit. We established a controlled information arrangement with her to prevent unregulated reporting on dimensional activities. Hinata absorbed this information with typical efficiency. Logical compromise. Shall I disable their recording equipment? Unnecessary, Naruto replied. Our agreement allows her limited observation rights. Better to acknowledge her presence than create an adversarial relationship. With a deliberate gesture toward the hidden observers, Naruto created a shadow clone that approached their position directly. Through this duplicate, he could extend communication while the original team departed via less observable routes. Cassidy emerged from concealment as the shadow clone approached, professional composure intact despite being discovered. Her camera operators remained partially hidden, equipment still recording. Mr. Uzumaki, she greeted the clone with practiced neutrality. Or should I say, shadow clone of Mr. Uzumaki. Another interdimensional arrival tonight. Cassidy, the clone acknowledged with a respectful nod. Your observational skills remain impressive. Yes, another colleague from my world has arrived. A development we'll brief you on during tomorrow's scheduled information exchange. Any connection to the energy disturbance at the northern substation? She pressed, demonstrating her growing understanding of the situation's technical aspects. Or the unusual readings near the harbor that have police scanners buzzing. Potentially related, the clone confirmed without revealing specifics. Hitch is why we're responding to multiple sites simultaneously. I recommend you maintain distance from the harbor situation. It may involve direct confrontation with Momoshiki Mezagogue. Professional excitement flashed in Cassidy's eyes at this confirmation, though she maintained composed demeanor. Understood. We'll maintain our agreement parameters. She hesitated, then added more personally, our new arrival. She seems important to you. The clone smiled slightly. A cherished friend and powerful ally. You'll meet her properly soon enough. I look forward to it, Cassidy replied with genuine interest. For the record, my team only began recording after the combat had concluded. We have no footage of your friend's techniques or abilities. Appreciated, the clone acknowledged. Professional integrity noted and respected. As the shadow clone maintained this diplomatic exchange, the original Naruto led Ino and Hinata toward the command center via rooftop pathways, the fastest and least observable route across Reefside. During transit, he updated Hinata on their current situation, including Momoshiki Mezagogue's hybrid nature and dimensional collapse strategy. Hinata absorbed the information with characteristic efficiency, asking precise clarifying questions about energy signatures, dimensional anchor points, and the properties of Dino gems. Her analytical mind, always exceptional, seemed to have sharpened further during the months of focused interdimensional research. The triangulation pattern suggests standard Otsutsuki dimensional harvesting methodology, she observed as they traversed the city. But modified to incorporate indigenous energy types for greater stability. Exactly, Naruto confirmed. The Dino gems represent a unique energy source unlike anything in our world, partially why they respond so readily to Sage Chakra. Hinata's expression reflected thoughtful analysis. I look forward to examining these gems with my Byakugan. If they contain IZED energy pathways similar to chakra networks, we might identify more efficient integration methods. Already thinking several moves ahead, Ino commented with approval. The research division has clearly benefited from your leadership. Quote, a faint blush colored Hinata's cheeks at the compliment, one familiar gesture amid her otherwise transformed demeanor. Sakura and Tsunade-sama deserve primary credit for the medical applications. I merely contributed the visual analysis components. They arrived at Reefside High School without incident, using the secure entrance that Principal Randall had provided for their operations. The underground command center hummed with activity despite the late hour, Haley coordinating communications from multiple field teams, while medical staff prepared treatment areas for potential injuries. Kira sat on an examination table, reluctantly submitting to diagnostic scans while maintaining communications with Tommy's harbor team. Her expression brightened noticeably when she spotted Naruto, then shifted to curious assessment upon seeing Hinata. Mission successful, I see, she called, wincing slightly as a medical technician applied regenerative gel to a significant bruise along her ribcage. Kira, meet Hinata Hyuga, Naruto made the introduction as they approached. Exceptional sensory specialist, combat expert, and one of Konoha's most brilliant tactical minds. You forgot. Heiress to one of our most powerful clans, Ino added with a sidelong glance. Hinata offered a respectful bow that somehow managed to be both formally proper and warmly genuine. Ford-san, your reputation precedes you. Naruto speaks highly of your abilities and dedication. Just Kira is fine, she replied, extending her hand in Western greeting. And likewise. Though apparently I've featured in interdimensional conversations I wasn't aware of. The subtle question in her statement drew a brief smile from Naruto. Hard not to mention someone who saved your life within hours of your arrival in a strange world. Haley approached from the communications center, tablet in hand displaying multiple data streams. Harbor situation update. Tommy and Ethan encountered a dimensional thinning pattern similar to the substation, but no anchor point established yet. Appears to have been preliminary site preparation rather than active installation. Confirming our diversion theory, Naruto nodded. Momoshiki Mezugog detected Hinata's arrival and wanted to split our response capabilities. Logical tactical approach, Hinata observed. Though inefficient, given my capability to defend myself upon arrival. He couldn't have predicted your specific abilities, Ino reasoned. Only that dimensional transfer had occurred. Haley studied Hinata with open scientific curiosity. You're the one with the special visual abilities Naruto mentioned, the Byakugan, correct? Yes, Hinata confirmed simply. A genetic trait allowing perceptual capabilities beyond standard human parameters. Would you be willing to examine our Dino gem collection? Your unique perspective might reveal properties we haven't been able to detect with our instrumentation. Hinata glanced at Naruto, who nodded encouragingly. Of course, any information that helps counter Momoshiki Mezugog's plans benefits both our worlds. They moved to the research section of the command center, where specialized containment units housed the Dino gems during periods when they weren't being actively utilized. Haley initiated security protocols, then opened the reinforced chamber rev. Alling all 5 stones arranged in their standard pentagonal configuration. Without prompting, Hinata activated her Byakugan, veins becoming prominent around her eyes as her pupils focused with heightened perception. Her expression shifted from clinical assessment to genuine wonder as she observed the gems through her enhanced vision. Remarkable, she breathed, moving closer to the containment field. They possess complete chakra networks, not biological, but definitely structured energy pathways almost identical to living organisms. That's impossible, Haley stated reflexively, then immediately reconsidered. Or rather, outside our current understanding, our scans show energy matrices, but nothing resembling biological systems. Your instruments detect energy flow but not organizational structure, Hinata explained, never taking her eyes off the gems. These pathways aren't physical conduits but dimensional folds, spaces where energy exists in multiple states simultaneously. Naruto watched with fascination as Hinata methodically examined each gem, her Byakugan perceiving aspects of their nature that had remained hidden despite weeks of intensive study. Her observations conference earned his intuitive understanding of the gems as semi-sentient entities rather than simple power sources. The green gem has the most complex network, she noted. Almost like a central nervous system with specialized processing centers. The yellow contains harmonic resonance chambers that amplify vibrational energy through dimensional folding. Red features reinforced pathways similar to muscle fiber energy distribution in living beings. This changes everything about our integration approach, Haley realized, furiously documenting Hinata's observations. We've been treating them as power sources when they're closer to symbiotic organisms. Which explains why they respond differently to different users, Kira added, having joined them despite medical recommendations to rest. There. Not just choosing compatible hosts, they're establishing genuine connections. Hinata continued her examination, moving beyond individual assessment to study their collective arrangement. The pentagonal formation isn't arbitrary. It creates a harmonic energy field that allows communication between the gems, a shared consciousness of sorts. Like the Biju, Naruto noted with dawning understanding. Separate entities that retain connection to a greater whole. Not precisely the same, Hinata qualified, but conceptually similar. These gems share information and energy in a continuous exchange, balancing their collective system while maintaining individual properties. The implications of Hinata's observations rippled through the research team, prompting immediate recalibration of ration protocols and synchronization methodologies. Haley quickly implemented modifications to their theoretical models, while Kira provided practical perspective from her experience as a former gem bearer. Throughout this scientific revolution, Naruto found himself studying Hinata with newfound appreciation. The months of separation had transformed the already capable Kunoichi into something extraordinary. Her natural perception abilities honed to unprecedented levels, her analytical mind sharpened by focused research, her quiet confidence evolved into serene authority. Your work in diamonds, ional research has clearly been groundbreaking, he commented when they had a moment relatively apart from the others. Hinata deactivated her Byakugan, turning toward him with a small smile. Necessity drives innovation, Naruto-kun. Your disappearance created urgent purpose that unified previously separate research disciplines. Still, your contributions seem to have evolved beyond traditional Hyuga applications. She nodded, a flash of pride briefly visible beneath her modest demeanor. Father says the same. The clan elders were initially resistant to allocating resources toward interdimensional studies, but her expression softened with remembered satisfaction. I convinced them otherwise. The subtle emphasis on convinced told Naruto volumes about how thoroughly Hinata had come into her own during their separation. The idea of her confronting and persuading the notoriously traditional Hyuga elders, a political feat that would have seemed impossible years earlier, spoke to profound personal growth. Their conversation was interrupted by Tommy and Ethan's return from the harbor investigation. Both appeared physically unharmed but carried the tension of concerning discoveries. The harbor site was more advanced than we initially detected, Tommy reported grimly. Not just preliminary preparation but a fully mapped installation point with dimensional coordinates already calibrated. They didn't establish the anchor only because they hadn't transported the necessary equipment yet, Ethan added, displaying schematic images on the main screen. But the targeting was precise, directly aligned with both the northern substation and an as yet unidentified third point to complete the triangulation. Southwestern quadrant, approximately 7 miles from city center, Hinata stated with quiet certainty. When everyone turned to her with questioning looks, she explained, geometric necessity. I calculated the most probable third vertex based on energy distribution TTERNS and dimensional thinning characteristics. Ethan looked impressed despite the serious circumstances. That matches our algorithmic projection exactly. We need to locate and secure this D point before Momoshiki Mesogogue can establish another anchor, Tommy concluded. If the triangulation completes, the dimensional barriers will become exponentially more difficult to stabilize. I should examine the site first, Hinata suggested. My Byakugan can identify preliminary dimensional manipulations without triggering detection systems. Not alone, Naruto stated firmly. Momoshiki Mesogogue specifically targeted the area around your arrival. He clearly considers you a significant threat, with good reason. Agreed, Tommy nodded. Reconnaissance team of 3, Naruto, Hinata, and Ethan for technical documentation. The rest of us will prepare countermeasures based on what you discover. As the team dispersed to implement this plan, Cassidy Cornell arrived at the command center. Her scheduled briefing time adjusted forward due to the night's developments. She entered with professional composure, though her eyes widened appreciably at the expanded operation she encountered. Ms. Cornell. Tommy acknowledged her arrival without breaking stride in his coordination efforts. Your timing is problematic but contractually appropriate. Haley will provide your authorized briefing in conference room 2. With respect, Drive. Oliver, Cassidy replied firmly. The agreement specifies direct access to planning sessions for non-tactical operations. This appears to qualify. Tom. Y looked prepared to argue, but Naruto intervened diplomatically. She's right, and her team's observations from the park might provide additional context for our planning. After a moment's consideration, Tommy nodded reluctantly. Very well. Observation only during the strategic session, with standard security review before publication. Agreed, Cassidy confirmed professionally, though her expression betrayed satisfaction at this small victory. As strategic planning commenced, Naruto found himself in an unusual position, coordinating between three formidable women with very different connections to his complicated situation. Hinata provided precision intelligence analysis based on her Byakugan observations. Kira contributed practical ranger experience despite medical recommendations to rest. And Cassidy documented the proceedings with journalistic detachment that barely concealed genuine concern for the unfolding crisis. The dynamics between these women fascinated him. Rather than competitive tension, they demonstrated immediate professional respect, each recognizing the other's unique contributions without territorial behavior. Hinata's analytical precision complemented Kira's instinctive tactical understanding. Cassidy's outsider perspective often identified assumptions the others took for granted, prompting useful clarifications. The southwestern location corresponds with prehistoric geothermal activity, Haley noted, displaying geological survey maps. Consistent with Momoshiki Mesogog's pattern of selecting sites with natural energy conduction properties. Veraging indigenous dimensional thinning points, Hinata concurred, studying the maps with her Byakugan activated. The geological structures contain natural quartz formations that would amplify dimensional resonance frequencies, making it easier to establish stable anchor points, Naruto concluded, and harder for us to disrupt them once activated. Which raises an important question, Cassidy interjected, her journalistic instincts focusing on the central issue. If Momoshiki Mesogog successfully establishes all three anchor points, what specifically happens when the triangulation completes? The room fell momentarily silent, the question cutting directly to their greatest concern. Dimensional collapse begins, Naruto answered gravely. Not instantaneous, but progressive. The barriers between realities become increasingly permeable, allowing energy transfer on massive scales. Leading to what end result? Cassidy pressed, her recorder capturing this critical information. Total dimensional merger, Hinata stated with clinical precision. Our world and yours fusing into a single, unstable reality where neither would retain cohesion. Physical laws would conflict, energy systems would destabilize, and both dimensions would ultimately degrade into component particles. Cassidy paled slightly but maintained professional composure. And the timeline for this process? Quote, approximately 7 days from triangulation completion to irreversible fusion, Hinata calculated. With catastrophic environmental effects beginning approximately 36 hours after anchor activation. Hence our urgency, Tommy concluded. This isn't just about protecting Reefside or even Earth. Both dimensions face extinction if Momoshiki Mesogog succeeds. As the strategy session continued into early morning hours, Naruto found himself increasingly conscious of the growing connections between worlds, not just the dangerous ones Momoshiki Mesogog sought to create, but the positive bond forming between individuals from different dimensions. Shinobi and Rangers, each bringing unique perspectives and abilities to a shared crisis. During a brief recess, he found Kira alone in the medical section, stubbornly reviewing tactical projections despite recommendations to rest. You should be recovering, he noted, leaning against the doorframe. She glanced up with a wry smile. Says the man who hasn't slept in 3 days. Different physiologies, he countered. Sage chakra and Kurama's healing factor compensate for ordinary human limitations. Show off, she replied without heat. Her expression shifted to something more contemplative as she set aside her tablet. Your friend Hinata, she's impressive. Always has been, Naruto agreed. Though she's evolved significantly since I saw her last. 9 months is a long time, Kira observed. Especially for someone who clearly cares deeply about you. The subtle question in her statement didn't escape his notice. Hinata and I have a complicated history. She had feelings for me for many years, feelings I was too oblivious to recognize when we were younger. And now, Naruto considered his answer carefully. Now we share profound respect and genuine affection, but not romantic partnership. That possibility evolved into something different as we both matured. That's surprisingly emotionally mature, Kira noted with raised eyebrows. Most guys I know can't discuss past relationships without either dismissiveness or lingering awkwardness. Nearly dying multiple times tends to clarify one's emotional intelligence, he replied with a slight smile. Besides, in our world, ninja partnerships require absolute honesty about interpersonal dynamics. Lives depend on it. Kira studied him thoughtfully. You're not what I expected when Tommy first brought you to the lab. Less dimensional tourist, more, I don't know, leader, I guess. I've had practice, Naruto acknowledged modestly. Though this situation is uniquely challenging. Bridging different power systems, different operational methodologies, different worldviews, it requires constant adaptation. Which you seem remarkably good at, she observed. The way you navigate between ranger protocols and shinobi techniques, between Tommy's leadership style and your own natural authority. It's impressive. I could say the same about you, he countered. Former Yellow Ranger who maintained combat readiness while pursuing professional music career, who then immediately stepped back into crisis management when dimensional threats appeared. A comfortable silence settled between them, the natural ease of two warriors who had quickly developed mutual respect despite vastly different origins. In that quiet moment, Naruto recognized something he hadn't fully acknowledged before, genuine connection developing beyond practical alliance. Something that, in different circumstances, might have time and space to evolve into more. The moment ended with Haley's announcement that their reconnaissance team needed to depart immediately. Intelligence indicated unusual energy fluctuations near the southwestern target zone, suggesting Momoshiki Mesogogue might be accelerating his timeline. Naruto rejoined the main operations center, where Hinata and Ethan were already preparing equipment for their reconnaissance mission. As he coordinated final details with Tommy, he became aware of Cassidy observing him with journalistic assessment. Something on your mind, Ms. Cornell? He asked during a brief pause in preparations. Cassidy, she corrected automatically, then seemed to consider whether to voice her thoughts. Professional curiosity won out. I'm trying to reconcile the various versions of Naruto Uzumaki I've encountered. Physical education teacher with unorthodox methods. Interdimensional warrior creating energy weapons from thin air. And now, strategic coordinator for a multi-world crisis response team. People contain multitudes, he replied simply. Indeed they do, she agreed, studying him with renewed interest. Though few contain quite such dramatic contrasts. She hesitated, then added more personally, for what it's worth. I think Reefside is fortunate you landed in our dimension rather than elsewhere. Before Naruto could respond to this unexpected sentiment, Ino approached with final intelligence updates for their mission. Cassidy nodded professionally and returned to her documentation duties, leaving him with the distinct impression that the journalist's interest extended beyond mere professional curiosity. Making friends in unexpected places, Ino observed with characteristic perceptiveness. Allies, Naruto corrected reflexively. MMHMM, she responded noncommittally. The perceptive reporter J. Oins the former Yellow Ranger and the arriving Hyuga princess in orbit around the interdimensional sage warrior. Quite the gravitational effect you've developed, Naruto. He gave her an exasperated look. Is this really the appropriate time for teasing? Precisely the appropriate time, Ino countered with unexpected seriousness. Human connections matter most when dimensions hang in the balance. Never forget that personal bonds often determine the outcome of world-changing events. History has proven this repeatedly. Her observation struck deeper than he anticipated, echoing his own foundational philosophy about the power of bonds and connections. Before he could formulate a proper response, Hinata joined them, equipment prepared and mission parameters confirmed. Reconnaissance team assembled and ready. She reported efficiently. Ethan has completed calibration of detection instruments to interface with my Byakugan observations. Then let's move out. Naruto nodded, setting AC. Depersonal complications in favor of mission focus. The sooner we identify the third vertex, the better our chances of preventing triangulation completion. As they prepared to depart, Naruto found his gaze drawn briefly to three women whose presence in this dimension complicated and enriched his experience in equal measure. Kira reviewing tactical data despite injuries, Cassidy documenting crit ICAL information with professional dedication, and Dino coordinating intelligence operations with elegant efficiency. Each representing different aspects of his increasingly complex interdimensional existence. Hinata, ever perceptive even without her Byakugan activated, noted his momentary distraction. Connections anchor us across dimensions, Naruto-kun, she observed quietly. They neither diminish nor contradict each other when genuine. Her insight, offered without judgment or expectation, reminded him why her friendship had always been one of his most valued bonds. Nodding acknowledgement of her wisdom, Naruto refocused on their immediate mission, while privately recognizing that the personal connections forming in this dimension were becoming increasingly significant to his sense of purpose. The reconnaissance team departed into the pre-dawn darkness, leaving the command center humming with preparations for whatever their findings might reveal. As they moved through Reefside's sleeping streets, Naruto found himself contemplating not just strategies for saving dimensions, but the unexpected ways in which this strange world was becoming something more than a temporary waystation on his journey home. "You're thinking very loudly," Hinata commented as they traveled, her Byakugan allowing her to perceive the subtle chakra fluctuations that accompanied his contemplation. Considering how quickly priorities can evolve, he replied honestly. "When I arrived here, my only focus was finding a way back to Konoha." "And now," she prompted gently. Naruto glanced at her, Hen ahead to where Ethan led them toward the southwestern coordinates. "Now I recognize that protection flows in both directions. Both worlds deserve defenders." Hinata's smile conveyed complete understanding. "The will of fire burns across dimensions, it seems." "Something like that," he agreed, grateful for her perspective. "Though I didn't expect to find kindred spirits so far from home." He truly connected heart recognizes its counterparts wherever they exist, she replied with the quiet wisdom that had always been her gift. Distance, even between dimensions, cannot prevent such recognition. As they continued toward their objective, Naruto reflected that perhaps the most unexpected development wasn't Momoshiki Mesogog's hybrid threat or the Dino Gem's response to his chakra, but how naturally he had integrated into this world's defense. How quickly connections had formed with people who, weeks ago, hadn't even existed in his awareness. The approaching dawn painted Reefside's horizon with colors reminiscent of Konoha's sunrise, creating momentary visual harmony between worlds separated by impossible distance yet increasingly connected through the bonds of those who traversed them. In that brief instant of parallel beauty, Naruto felt not divided between dimensions, but expansively connected to both. Whatever Momoshiki Mesogog intended through dimensional collapse, Naruto silently vowed that these connections, these bonds that transcended world boundaries, would ultimately prove stronger than any destructive force seeking to tear reality apart. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.